From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, wishing you a Happy New Year's. This compilation includes New Year's-themed episodes from throughout our series run, with podcasts that are dated between 2010 and 2021. Now, it should be noted that because these episodes are older, any offers and information contained in them may not be valid unless they're currently reflected on our Great Detectives of Old Time Radio website at greatdetectives.net. With that said, please enjoy these New Year's-related radio detective programs. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. Got a comment? Email me, box13 at greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And you can become a fan of the show on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. All right, well, before we do get into today's show, I want to let you know about our sponsors. It can be a challenge to grow your business. It seems there are a never-ending list of activities that eat into limited time. That's why I'm so glad to have GoToMeeting as a sponsor, because GoToMeeting allows you to do more with the time you have. Whether it saves you a plane trip to Japan, a trip across town, GoToMeeting saves you time on travel. It can also give you greater flexibility in your scheduling. With GoToMeeting, you can have a meeting with clients in Los Angeles and then immediately afterwards be able to connect with vendors in San Diego through the convenience of GoToMeeting web conferencing. Listeners to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio can try GoToMeeting free for 45 days. For this special offer, visit gotomeeting.com/podcast. That's gotomeeting.com/podcast. Start your free trial. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes. And we're kind of skipping around because we had skipped before and did the Night Before Christmas episode around Christmas time. So consequently, we're not going to do that again. And so we move on to the very next episode of Sherlock Holmes. This one is called The Case of the Iron Box. And this one I think you're going to enjoy. We got email a few weeks back from a listener wondering when we were going to get to this one. Well, it's here. So sit back and enjoy The Case of the Iron Box.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend at Master Detective Sherlock Holmes. Well, this is it, New Year's Eve. And I wish you could be here with us this evening so we could toast each other with a glass of Petri California port. As you know, port wine has long been a favorite wine for celebrating a happy occasion. That's because port is a wine rich in tradition. And you couldn't ask for a more delicious port than Petri port. Petri port is a deep, glowing red color, beautiful to look at and wonderful to taste, with a hearty, full flavor that's right from the heart of the grape. And when you serve Petri port to your friends tonight or any time, remember you can serve it proudly because the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wine. And now I'm sure Dr. Watson's waiting for us, so let's drop in and see him. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. Drop your usual chair.
Thank you.
That's it. Well, did you enjoy the Christmas holidays?
Well, I've had a whale of a time, thank you, but I don't think I can face a turkey or a mince pie for at least another year. How about you, Doctor?
Oh, I had a very pleasant week, too, my boy. Parties, visitors, and a flattering number of Christmas messages to be answered.
Oh, say, you got a new pipe. Is that a Christmas present?
Yes, new pipe, new tobacco pouch, and a pound of my favorite tobacco. All of them sent to me from London by an old client and a friend of mine, Sir Ian Dunbar.
An old client, huh? Well, do you mean he was one of your patients, or was he someone that you and the great Sherlock Holmes helped?
The latter, Mr. Bartell. As a matter of fact, it was receiving this gift that reminded me of the story I've decided to tell you tonight. A story in which Sir Ian Dunbar played a prominent part.
And how did it begin?
The day before New Year's Eve in 1899, Sherlock Holmes and I sat in opposite corners of a first-class railway carriage as we sped towards Edinburgh in the Flying Scotsman.
What took you and Sherlock Holmes up there, Doctor?
It started off as a holiday visit, Mr. Bartell. My old friend Sir Walter Dunbar had asked Holmes and me to spend a few days with him at Dunbar Castle, about 20 miles outside Edinburgh. After we left King's Cross Station, Holmes, his sharp, eager face framed in his deerstalking cap, dipped into the bundle of fresh papers which he'd brought with him. We left Bedford far behind us before he thrust the last one of them under the seat, leaned across, and offered me his cigar.
Care for a cigar, Watson?
No, thanks, awful. I'll stick to my pipe.
Flying Scotsman's living up to its name. We're going splendidly. Our present rate is 53.5 miles an hour.
Oh, I hadn't noticed the quarter-mile post.
Nor have I, but the telegraph posts on this line are 60 yards apart. With the aid of a watch, the calculation is a simple one. Watson, my dear fellow, we have several hours ahead of us. Now, tell me more about Walter Dunbar. I have a feeling that he's in some kind of trouble, but you haven't wanted to talk about it.
Well, it's not exactly trouble, Holmes, but there's a strange problem that confronts the Dunbars. A problem that'll be settled at midnight tomorrow.
Oh, indeed. Night of New Year's Eve, eh?
Yes, exactly, but to really appreciate the story, I have to begin by telling you of the death of old Sir Thomas Dunbar.
The father of the present baronet, I suppose.
Yes, he was severely wounded at Waterloo, though he managed to last out long enough to get back to Dunbar Castle. The story goes that as he lay there on his deathbed, he told his wife of his plans for their unborn
son. Dinna grieve, lass. I've fetched the baronet here home from Waterloo. What if I fetched the mortal wound as well? Oh, hush, lass. I'm not afraid to die. All that niggles me is that I shall ne'er see the child you bear. Is Sir Wattle Scott no coming yet? Can he visit the deathbed of his old friend? Oh, who's there? Is that you, Sandy Murdoch?
Aye, Thomas. It's me.
Aye. I'm leaving an unborn son behind me when I die. Now, I don't trust women or children or banks for that matter. Put the best part of my wealth and gold in the big iron box you'll find under the bed. The money's there. Aye, and something else for a rainy day. You're to keep that box in trust for me, Sandy. You can turn it over to my boy on the New Year's Eve before his 21st birthday. And he'll be a man and wise enough to know how to use it. You understand, Sandy?
Aye, Thomas. But supposing your bairn's a girl.
A girl? I tell you, it'll be a boy. And we'll name him Walter after my good friend, Sir Walter Scott.
Very interesting story, Watson. And that child, of course, is the gentleman we are going to see now, Sir Walter Dunbar.
Exactly.
And the first baronet was a friend of Sir Walter Scott, while his son can boast of your acquaintance. Why, it's a family singularly rich in literary friendships.
That's not very funny, Holmes. To continue, I suppose you can guess what happened. Sir Thomas carefully drew up a document to specify the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. And the poor child was born on February 29th. It was a leap year.
Oh, so poor Sir Walter is still waiting for his iron box full of gold.
Yes, he'll be 84 next year, and yet legally, with only one birthday every 4 years in the eyes of the law, he'll at last be 21.
A most amusing situation, though I'm afraid Sir Walter finds it far from entertaining. The lawyers must have been extremely scrupulous in abiding by the letter of the document.
Yes, old Sandy Murdoch is dead now, of course. But he, too, is a great-grandson, William Murdoch, who still handles the Dunbar estate. He'll be at the castle tonight to formally hand over the iron box.
I'm delighted you accepted the holiday invitation of Sir Walter. My dear fellow, I've needed a rest, but I've always loathed too strict a one. This situation may pose a nice little problem for me.
Problem?
Yes, I'm reasonably certain that the aged Sir Walter Dunbar will not get his iron box full of gold on this New Year's Eve either. But we shall see, old fellow. We shall see.
Dr. Watson, I'm glad to see you and Mr. Holmes here at the castle.
Thank you, my boy. Holmes, this is Ian Dunbar, Sir Walter's grandson.
How do you do, Mr. Dunbar?
I'm very proud to meet you, Mr. Holmes. I've heard a lot about you. Our grandfather will be down in a few moments. Let's go into the library, shall we?
Well, I imagine Sir Walter's quite excited about tonight's ceremony, isn't he?
Wouldn't you be, if you'd waited 63 years too long for an inheritance?
Indeed, I should.
Thank the Lord I had the foresight to be born on the prosaic date of August the 21st.
Even if your grandfather's death, you will be the next baronet, I take it.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. You see, my father was killed 2 months ago at Mafeking.
Yes, I read about it in the papers, my boy. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Doctor. The opening of the box isn't going to be the only ceremony at midnight. Dorothy and I are announcing our engagement.
Dorothy?
Dorothy Small. She and her father are staying here, too.
My congratulations.
Yes, indeed, Ian. Indeed, mine, too.
Thank you. It's been quite a battle with her father, though. He's a businessman and isn't impressed with titles when they aren't accompanied by a suitable income. But when we told him about the inheritance, he relented and gave his consent. Here's Dorothy now. Dorothy, darling, I want you to meet 2 friends of mine, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Now, how do you do, Miss Small?
How are you, my dear? From what this young man's been telling us, I gather that congratulations are in order.
Thank you. I finally persuaded Father that Ian would make a worthy son-in-law. For a while, I was afraid we'd have to elope to Gretna Green, live in a cottage on bread and cheese and law, but brave the parental wrath, just as they do in the storybooks.
Oh, Sir Walter, there you are.
Watson, my dear boy. How are you? And this must be your friend Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, Sir Walter?
Very well for a young nipper who'll be 21 at midnight. Gentlemen, may I introduce Mr. Herbert Small?
How do you do, sir? I believe that we have to congratulate you on the engagement of your daughter.
That was supposed to remain a secret until midnight. The Dunbar box was finally opened. Didn't be grouchy, Herbert. The children are in love, and I'm going to settle money on Ian. And it's New Year's Eve. Let's enter into the spirit of the occasion. Bring out the glasses, Ian. I've had some bottles of my special pride put out. It's the finest port in Scotland. The cream of Dunbar. My father laid the first bottle down the year before I was born. And a drink of the brew will surely warm the cockles of your heart.
My mouth's watering already, Sir Walter.
When is this lawyer fellow, young Murdoch, getting here? Oh, any moment, Herbert. As soon as he arrives, we'll have dinner, and then we'll be ready for the evening ceremony.
He's bringing the famous iron box with him, Sir Walter?
If he doesn't, they won't get any dinner, Holmes. Ian, pass the glasses around, my boy. There you are, Murdoch.
Good evening, Sir Walter.
Oh, you've got the box with you, I see. Now the party's complete. Oh, let me introduce you. Miss Small, her father, Mr. Small, my grandson, Ian, you know. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
I'm sorry I'm late, Sir Walter. My train was delayed.
Oh, that's all right, Murdoch. You're here, and you brought the box. That's all that matters. Ian, give our young lawyer a drink. Here, I'll help you pour it.
I must say that this is rather exciting, Holmes. The famous iron box with its inheritance of gold.
Yes, and from the size of the box, at a rough guess, I should estimate its cubic content in gold at around 5,000 pounds. Not a vast sum, perhaps, to a businessman like Mr. Small, but a windfall to an impecunious Scottish baronet.
Yes, I suppose it is.
A strong young man, Mr. Murdoch.
How do you mean strong, Holmes?
A box that size, full of golden sovereigns, would weigh a considerable amount. And yet the lawyer carried it single-handed.
Now that we're all assembled, I'm going to propose a toast. Though it's still some hours off yet, let's drink to the new year. It means a lot to some of us. To 1900.
1900.
We should toast more than just 1900, Sir Walter. We should drink to the new century that's about to begin.
Good idea, Dorothy.
Oh, I'm afraid that wouldn't be quite appropriate, Miss Small. To be accurate, the 20th century won't begin until January the 1st, 1901, and not 1900.
Of course. That's it. Dorothy, I'm afraid your wedding can't take place for some time yet.
Father, what are you talking about?
I read an article in The Guardian the other day that said just the same thing as you, Dr. Watson. And what's more, it said something even more important. It said that 1900 is not a leap year. Oh, rubbish. Leap year comes every 4 years. There was one in 1896. Then obviously 1900 is one.
I think Mr. Small may be right. What do you say, Mr. Holmes? Do you know?
Well, I hope no one would bring up this point, but it's the little problem I referred to on the train, my dear Watson.
Yes, I remember.
Holmes, for heaven's sake, answer. Is 1900 a leap year or no?
I'm afraid it's not, Sir Walter.
No?
Because of a slight imbalance that would otherwise be produced in the calendar. Of the even century years, only those divisible by 400 are leap years. In other words, 1600 was a leap year, the year 2000 will be a leap year, but 1800 and 1900 are not leap years.
Then you have no birthday next year, Sir Walter, and I'm afraid I can't open the box tonight.
And the Dunbars won't get their inheritance.
And you, my dear, don't marry for a few more years. I won't allow you to marry a pauper.
Mr. Holmes, are you sure of your facts?
I'm very much afraid that I am, young man.
Oh, this is terrible. I can't stand any more.
No, don't take it too badly, Sir Walter. Here, drink this. That's it. After all, you only have to wait another 4 years.
Another 4 years? At my age, young man, at my age. Oh, no, I shall never live that long. Aye, what is it, Angus?
Dinner is prepared, Sir Walter. You can serve it as soon as you're ready, sir.
What a miserable meal, Holmes. Sir Walter's gone to his room, the young lovers are nearly in tears, and Small and the lawyer Murdoch seem to be positively gloating.
Yes, a most depressing atmosphere in which to welcome the new year. But let us, at least, make the best of it. I think I'll go and have a talk with Sir Walter. And you, my dear chap, why not try and cheer up the young folks? Some of your experiences in India may make them their minds off the trouble.
Yes, quite an idea. I'll join you in the library. Call me if you want me, Holmes. Ah, there you are, my dears.
Hello, Dr. Watson.
All alone in front of the fire, eh?
I'm afraid we're not in very good spirits, sir.
Oh, nevertheless, I'll sit down here and join you, if you don't mind. Misery loves company, you know.
So very kind, Doctor.
Oh, not at all.
I was just trying to persuade Ian to elope with me. But he's being most ungallant. He won't even consider it.
How can I, darling? I've got under 200 pounds a year in my own right. How could we live on that? I was counting on the money the grandfather was going to give us to get me started.
Now, Miss Small, a little earlier you talked of Gretna Green and bread and cheese and love in a cottage. Yes, there's a lot to be said for it, you know.
Well, to be said for it, yes, Doctor. But have you ever tried it?
Not literally, my boy, but I may tell you that when Mary, my wife, and I were first married, I had very little money. In fact, my income was just about the sum that you mentioned. And we were very happy.
Ah, but you have a profession, Doctor. Look at me. I've been trained for nothing except to be Laird of Dunbar Castle. I can't support a wife on tradition.
But you're young, Ian. You can get some kind of position, I'm sure you
Yes,
can.
of course. As a matter of fact, I think that... Holmes, what is it? What's wrong?
There's devil's work afoot, Watson. Come with me, old fellow. And you, Mr. Dunbar.
Mr. Holmes, what's happened?
It's Sir Walter. I went to his room. It was in darkness, but in the moonlight I saw two figures struggling by the open casement. One of them was Sir Walter. As I entered, he disappeared from sight. His attacker had pushed him out of the window into the moat.
How dreadful.
The other end got away in the darkness. We must get lanterns and go out to the moat at once. Though I'm very much afraid, Mr. Dunbar, that your grandfather is beyond our help.
Dr. Watson will be back in just a second, so I'd just like to remind you that if you want to serve a wine over the holidays that you're sure the ladies will enjoy, serve Petri California Muscatel. Petri Muscatel is a golden wine with a wonderful flavor. The flavor of big, plump Muscat grapes. And you know what a flavor that is. I'm sure you'll find that Petri Muscatel is the favorite wine of all women, just as Petri Port is the favorite wine with men. And incidentally, if you're not sure which to get, Petri Muscatel or Petri Port, don't buy one, buy two. Get them both, and you'll be sure to please everyone. Now, to get back to our story, someone had pushed poor old Sir Walter out of his bedroom window and into the moat below. Isn't that right, Dr. Watson?
Yes, Mr. Bartell. Of course, we grabbed lanterns as fast as we could and rushed outside, but it was a hopeless task. The water was 8 or 10 feet deep, and it seemed obvious that the elderly Sir Walter wouldn't have a chance of saving himself. But we searched on, the flicker of bobbing lanterns and the scurrying figures in the frosty moonlight, forming a weird, fantastic...
Angus, bring a lantern over here.
Aye, sir.
Can Can you see anything, Holmes?
Not a thing.
I don't see why your friend doesn't call the police, Dr. Watson. He's accomplishing nothing.
We thought there might be a chance of finding the old man alive, Mr. Small. He wants to avoid a scandal, if possible, for your sake, sir, as well as the Dunbars.
The scandal can't touch me or Dorothy over this. Her engagement was never announced. Thank heaven.
That's a great pity, sir. I should think some new blood in your family would be a great improvement.
You're being confoundedly impertinent, Doctor.
And you'll be confoundedly heartless, sir. Well, Holmes, have you given up hope?
I'm afraid we'll never find him without dragnets and grappling hooks. Have to call the police. What time is it? Sir Ian, you know the time?
What did you call me, Mr. Holmes?
Sir Ian.
By Jove, yes. It does seem a bit premature, Holmes, but of course you're right. If your poor grandfather's dead, Mr. Dunbar, you're the baronet now.
And the time, Sir Ian?
It's 11:45, Mr. Holmes.
A quarter of an hour to the new year. Sir Ian, doesn't that fact suggest something to you?
Yes, it does. So I'm the new baronet, am I? Very well, then. There'll be no more talk of the police for 15 minutes. I want all of you to come back to the castle with me. As the last chime of midnight rings out, I shall have a statement to make. A statement that I want you all to hear.
What's he brought us all back here for, Holmes? There's something very funny going on. I tell you, I don't like the look of it.
And I, Watson, like the look of it very much.
I wish you wouldn't be so dashed mysterious. What are you up to? You haven't taken a step yet towards finding the murderer.
Haven't I? And I wonder what causes the beads of perspiration on Mr. Small's brow.
Small? You mean that Small...
And I wonder what causes the singular look of apprehension on the face of Murdoch, the young lawyer. You remember, of course, on my remarking how easily he carried the large iron box.
Good Scott, yes. And it took a strong man to throw Sir Walter out of the window.
Watson,
huh?
The new year is approaching.
Ladies and gentlemen, in view of our recent tragedy, this is one New Year's Eve when none of us feels like song and jollity. But there still remains a ritual duty for me to perform. Mr. Murdoch, open the iron box, please.
But I can't do that. It was only to be opened for your grandfather.
No, Mr. Murdoch. The phrase was that it was to be opened on the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. I am now the baronet, and I shall be 21 next year on August 21st. Open the box, please, Mr. Murdoch.
Ian, darling, how frightfully clever of you.
Good lad, I hoped you'd think of it.
Sir Ian.
Murdoch, open that box.
Very well, Sir Ian. But I'm afraid you're in for something of a shock.
Great Scott, the box is empty.
Except for a sheet of notepaper in the bottom.
What's the meaning of this, Murdoch?
Read that paper, Sir Ian, and you'll understand.
I owe you 4,000 sovereigns. And it's signed Alexander Murdoch, on behalf of Murdoch and Murdoch, lawyers. You'd better explain this.
It's the family skeleton, Sir Ian. That note is signed by my great-grandfather, the one that witnessed the original deed concerning the box. As soon as Sir Walter was born on that February the 29th, my great-grandfather realized the money wouldn't have to be produced for 84 years.
And so he stole it.
He borrowed it. He always intended to pay it back, but he was never able to. When he died, he told my father of his secret, and my father in turn told me. We've always planned to put back the money, Sir Ian, but we've never been able to.
This is daylight robbery. You should prosecute them, Ian. The firm's still in business. You can ruin them. You can sue them for every penny they have.
Mr. Small, you've already shown a marked aversion to my family. I suggest you allow me to handle their affairs.
Bravo, Ian.
How dare you, Dorothy? Go to your room.
No one's going to their room. No one's leaving here until the police arrive. I'm convinced that one of you murdered my grandfather tonight.
And if you ask me, it's obvious who that someone is.
Who, Dr. Watson?
You, Mr. Murdoch. You came here planning to kill poor old Sir Walter because you never intended to open that box. You thought that your secret would die with him.
That's a lie. I was going to tell him everything and then ask for time to pay the money. I didn't kill him.
Of course he didn't. There's your murderer. You yourself, Ian.
Father, what are you saying?
I'm saying that Ian's the murderer. He saw that the box wasn't going to be opened for another 4 years. He realized out the money couldn't marry Dorothy, so he killed his grandfather and then ordered the box opened.
You're trying to cover yourself. You pushed grandfather out of that window tonight. You thought that if he died, the box would never be opened. So Dorothy couldn't marry me.
You young whippersnapper.
Gentlemen, please.
Upon my soul, Holmes, you seem remarkably calm.
Do I, my dear Watson? I must say I'm absolutely fascinated by listening to three people accusing each other of murder, and each of them producing perfectly sound motives. It's a remarkable example of the dangers of reasoning from motive alone. We should profit by experience, Watson.
Mr. Holmes, how can you be so calm? There's a murderer in this
I
room.
suppose this game of charades is getting a little out of hand, Miss Small. Let's conclude it. You'd better come out now.
tapestry. It's moving.
A happy new year to you all.
Grandfather.
Sir Walter, oh, am I seeing a ghost?
Oh, Sir Walter, you're all
Well,
right.
what kind of a game have you been playing? It's a bunny game that Holmes and I invented. You might call it forcing the issue. I was determined to have the box open before the next 4 years were out, whilst I was still alive to look inside it. But the trickery of your family, Murdoch, has made me a very unhappy man.
Sir Walter, I shall pay back the money in a few years. I swear I will.
It'll be too late to do me any good, but I'll take care that Ian gets it. I've half a mind to prosecute you.
Grandfather, the money isn't important now that you're all right.
You were counting on it just the same, my boy, so that you could marry Dorothy. I know that.
She'll never marry a pauper. I won't allow it.
When I'm 21, you can't stop me, Father. And I am going to marry Ian.
Be quiet. Walter, it's a very unsavory business. I think that you owe us an explanation of your behavior tonight.
You tell him, Holmes. I fancy a wee drop of cream of Dunbar. Watching you all search for my body in the moat has made me thirsty.
The explanation is a very simple one, ladies and gentlemen. When you arrived here tonight, Mr. Murdoch, I knew from the way you handled the box that it could not contain the sum of gold it was supposed to.
And so you suspected fraud and devised a plan to force the opening of the box?
Yes, and Sir Walter was an eager conspirator.
Of course I was. Ian is 21 next August. Supposing I had died after he came of age, and before my next birthday, 4 years hence, the box would never have been opened.
And so we invented the fake murder story. By the way, Ian, I must congratulate you for grasping the possibilities of the situation so speedily. If you hadn't demanded the opening of the box, the Murdoch secret might still be a secret.
It was a clever plan, Holmes. It's too bad that it had to have such a miserable ending.
I'm not sure that we have finished with the matter. Mr. Murdoch.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
You say that your family took £4,000 from that box?
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Curious. I would have sworn from its size that it would hold closer to 5,000. And in your account of the legend, Watson, you told me that Sir Thomas Dunbar stated on his deathbed that he had put something else in the box.
That's right.
Something for a rainy day, is that
Yeah.
it? Mm-hmm. Did the Murdochs find that extra something?
No, Mr. Holmes. They found nothing but the gold.
Oh, that's very odd. I think I'll take a closer look at that box if you don't mind.
Since this seems to be a night of telling secrets, I think you might as well know, Father, that if you don't give your consent, I shall elope with Ian.
Oh, bravo, my dear, bravo.
No such thing.
I admire your resolution, young lady, but I hardly think it will be necessary.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Permit me to show you all the treasure of the Dunbars.
What have you found, Holmes?
The something for a rainy day that old Sir Thomas spoke of. You see, since the cubic contents of the box obviously differed from my calculations, I deduced the existence of a false bottom. I was correct. And in that space, I found this.
Oh, it's a manuscript.
Quite so, the manuscript of a book. Look at the title page and see the author's name.
History of the Dunbar Family by Sir Walter Scott.
I think, Sir Walter, that an original and unpublished manuscript by your distinguished namesake will prove worth several times the gold that is missing from that box.
You've saved the day for us, Holmes, my boy. God bless you. Oh, this has been as strange a new year as ever I knew. But it's turned out to be a bonny one, thanks to you, Holmes. Well, fill up your glasses. We're going to drink a toast to the new year.
Ah, Joe, yes, Sir Walter. This is really a happy occasion.
Then let's complete it by singing the traditional song of the season, Auld Lang Syne. And in this case, when we sing, Should Old Acquaintance Be Forgot, I feel that in our hearts we should be thinking of Sir Walter Scott. Though he died over 60 years ago, he's made us all very happy here tonight.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to
Doctor, that turned out to be a very happy new year for all concerned.
Yes, that's one new year that I'll never forget.
Well, I sure hope you'll always remember this one, too.
Oh, just a second, my boy. That calls for a glass of port.
Fine.
Well, to a happy new year, my boy, for you and for our many friends listening in.
And to you, Doctor.
Oh, thanks, boy.
Ah, that's good. Doctor, this has indeed been a pleasant association for me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
You're the best storyteller I've ever known, and the Petrie family makes the best wine I've ever tasted. I hope that, just as they've been making wine for generations in the past, the Petrie family will continue to make fine wine in the future.
And Mr. Bartell, I know that you'll always be here to tell us just how good that Petri wine is.
Well, I hope so, Doctor. And I hope you'll always be right here beside me to tell another swell story about
I
Mr.
hope
Holmes.
so, too, my boy.
Oh, and incidentally, Doctor, what new adventure are you planning to tell us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a weird story. It starts with a series of murders on Hampstead Heath and ends with a battle to the death in a burning waxworks. I call it the strange case of the murderer in wax.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Silver Blaze. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, between this episode and the night before Christmas, they definitely ended 1945 on a high note with a very pleasant ending. And they were doing some stuff with dates. It was kind of interesting. I don't know whether they quite had the law right on that 21st birthday thing. I know we have some, I guess they would call them barristers in the audience, but I don't know if they're experts quite in that area of law. But actually, an amazingly happy ending, given the way most of the detective shows end up. No one could be too dissatisfied with the outcome. All right, well, we do have a couple comments to get to. Timothy writes in regarding the Scandal in Bohemia, one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories, and Adam does a great job presenting these old-time radio shows to a new audience. And then we also have this one here. Thanks, Adam, for bringing us these great detective radio programs. Johnny Dollar and Sherlock Holmes are my favorites. Looking forward to following your podcast for many years to come. From Julia, and then just a simple, great show. Well, thank you so much for the kind comments. Before we get started, this program is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. And I want to go ahead and start out by thanking Levi and Jay for their one-time donation. I also want to thank Eugene, who became a Patreon supporter at our Master Detective level of $15 or more per month, and Jesse, who became a Patreon supporter at the rookie level of $2 or more a month. With those two pledges, that puts us at 71% of the $600 required to trigger the summer series. It'll be a special series of podcasts that will run on a separate feed during the summer, and it will be picked by our Patreon listeners. And you can become a supporter for as little as $2 or a month. Go to patreon.greatdetectives.net. Also, over at greatdetectives.net this weekend, check out my ranking of radio's most essential women. And now it's time for today's episode of Dragnet. You can have all of my articles automatically delivered to your Kindle. You can try that service out free for 2 weeks in the Kindle store. But now it's time for today's episode of Dragnet. The original air date on this one, March 8th, 1951, and the title is The Big New Year's.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. It's New Year's Eve in your city, and you're on special duty. Thousands of people crowd downtown streets. One of them is a killer. Your job, find them.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was New Year's Eve. It was cold in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of homicide, special duty. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Thad Brown, chief of detectives. My name's Friday. I was on the way back from dinner, and it was 8:35 p.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide.
Joe?
Hi, Barney.
How is it outside?
It's cold. Not keeping people at home, though. Did you check the crowds?
Yeah. Been watching it from the window here. Seems bigger than last New Year's. Crazy.
You're on with Ben and me tonight, is that right?
Uh-huh. Thought I was going to have it off. Wife had a little house party planned and everything.
Well, that's too bad. Maybe next time, huh?
Yeah, that's what I said last New Year's. Nah, guess we better start moving.
Yeah, where's Ben?
He went down the hall a minute, said he'd be right back. I better take my top coat, huh?
Yeah, I would if I were you. Nothing for us in the book, is there, Barney?
I almost forgot Jack Conley called, having a little party out at his house. Wants you, Romero, to drop around when you get off. Said he'd call back.
Oh.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. You about ready?
Yeah, let me grab my overcoat.
All right.
I just tagged back communications. Switchboard's lit up like a Christmas tree. Doing a million bid.
Just like last year, they're starting off strong.
415s, 507. Calls coming in with a dozen. I'd like to see it just once. People celebrating New Year's without tearing up half the town.
I get it. Homicide Friday. Oh, yeah, Jack. Yeah, well, Barney just mentioned it. Well, we'll try and make it. You know how things are tonight. Yeah, we'll try, sure. Thanks a lot. There's Jack Conley, Ben, on his way home. He wants us to drop by his place if we get off early tonight.
Not much chance of that. You ready?
Yeah, I am. You, Barney? Let's go.
Guess you can't tell. You might get a break. The crowds are starting in pretty early. Good chance they'll break and go home right after midnight. That should get us off early.
And that was the idea last year, wasn't it, Ben?
Yeah.
What time did you get off?
6 a.m. Together with Sergeant Barney Luchek, Ben and I left the city hall and started to cruise to the southern end of the central area. As any police officer can tell you, New Year's Eve for him is one of the hardest working nights in the year. This one was no different for us. Within an hour, we'd had more than a half a dozen calls to check out. Street fights, drunken driving, disturbing the peace. The usual complaints that you'd expect to get when a community of 3 million celebrates New Year's Eve. 9:43 p.m. We were cruising in the area of Alameda and Macy Street.
Unit 72R at Wilshire in Geneva at 311. At 311, KMA 367. Roger, 72R. Unit 112 at 83 Naylor Avenue. See the man, keep the peace. KMA 367.
No stopping them, huh?
Well, it's a big night. Smoke, Joe?
No, thanks.
Attention all units in the vicinity at East Main and Darwin. An officer needs help.
That looks like we got one, huh?
Yeah.
All units in the vicinity at East Main and Darwin. An officer needs help. KMA 367.
I guess we better handle it, huh?
All right.
Next one to the left, Ben. We can go out Darwin.
Well,
I better call him. 80K to Control 1. 80K to Control 1.
What's the matter?
Well, I guess they're busy. 80K to Control 1. 80K to Control 1.
Stand by, 80K. Attention, all units. All units in the vicinity. The call to East Main and Darwin is now a shooting.
I guess you better push it, Ben.
Yep. Got it down to the floor.
All units in the vicinity. The call to East Main and Darwin is now a shooting. The call is now code 3, KMA 367.
That's it coming up, Ben. East Main.
Yeah.
There's a crowd there on the corner. I guess you better pull up here, huh? All right. Come on.
Yep.
Over by the light pole, Ben. Joe, man lying on the sidewalk.
You want to check the crowd, Barney?
Yeah, okay.
Let us through here, please.
Can we get through?
Excuse me. Look, will you please get back? Move back, please.
All right, come on. I wonder if you just move along.
Just move along there.
Move along.
That's
Give us
right.
a little room to work. Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, Joe?
Have a look here.
No.
It's Jack Connolly.
That?
He's dead. His full name was John Patrick Connolly, serial number 367. He was one of the veteran officers in Central Homicide. He lay face down on the pavement, one of his legs straddling the curbstone. He'd been shot twice at the base of his skull. There were 4 more bullet wounds in his back. Ben got to a phone, called Homicide, and told them what had happened. 24 cruiser cars and more than 100 men were immediately dispatched to the scene of the killing. They circled the area for 12 blocks around and started a door-to-door search for the killer. Suspicious-looking pedestrians were stopped at every street corner and questioned. 10:30 p.m. The ambulance arrived and Jack Connolly's body was taken to the morgue. Along with Thaxter and Bryant from Homicide, Barney Luchek, Ben, and I continued checking in the immediate vicinity of the killing. We found no one who'd admit that they actually saw the shooting. 6 people in the crowd told us that they heard the shots and they saw Connolly fall to the pavement. They'd also seen a man standing behind Connolly turn and run down the street right after the shooting. No one had followed him. The man was described as medium build, wearing a dark suit and a dark hat. That's all they could tell us. 11:25 p.m. Ben and I met Barney Luchek back at the car.
Morning. Did you get anything?
Checked out every store in the neighborhood that's open. Not much. How about you?
No, it's the same. Pretty thin.
Brian and Thaxter turned up a newsboy down the street. He told him he saw the guy in the dark suit running down the street.
Yeah.
Thought he saw the guy come out of this bar here.
We heard that too, Barney. We talked to the bartender. He doesn't recall the man.
Oh, say, I almost forgot. I checked with the office. Mrs. Connolly's been calling in. Wants to know where her husband is.
Oh, yeah.
I asked personnel to hold off notifying her. Thought maybe you fellas would want to tell her. You knew Connolly pretty well, didn't you?
Yeah, a long time.
Family man?
3 kids.
If you fellas don't want to tell her, I'll call personnel back. They can do it.
No, it's all right. We'll tell her. 11:40 p.m. Ben and I got in the car and headed out for the home of the slain officer, Jack Connolly. The house was on Ralston Avenue, just a few blocks from where Ben lived. We parked the car and started up the front walk. The lights were burning in the living room.
Lousy job.
What?
I said it's a lousy job.
Yeah. Better try it again, huh?
I heard it. Somebody's coming.
Oh.
Hi, Joe, Ben.
Oh, Betty. Hi, Betty.
I'm sure glad you can make it. Everybody's here. Come in, come in.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm still waiting for that wandering husband of mine. If he's not here by midnight, he's going to be in the doghouse for sure. Here, let me take your coat.
No, Betty, that's all right. I wonder if we could go back into the kitchen. We'd like to talk to you.
Matter, can't you stay long?
Well, no, not too long.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, come on back in the kitchen and I'll get you something. Maybe you can drop back later on. Jack should be here by then. He'd better be. Come on in. Either one of you seen Jack?
That's what we wanted to talk to you about, Betty.
What?
You want to sit down, Betty?
What is it, Joe? Tell me.
Well, he had an accident.
Where is he? I want to go see him. How bad an accident?
Pretty bad.
I want to go see him, Joe. If he's hurt, I want to see him. Couldn't be that bad, could it?
Yeah.
Oh, please, Joe. Please, not dead. Tell me, Joe, please.
I'm sorry, Betty.
Dear God. Oh, God.
Want to give me a hand here, Joe?
Yeah. Oh, she's white as a sheet.
Be worse when she comes to. We better get a hold of the family doctor.
No, we're going to have to wait. We'll never get through now.
Huh?
Phone lines are probably jammed. It's midnight.
Oh, yeah. Happy New Year.
12:30 a.m. We finally got a hold of the Connolly's family doctor, and he told us that he'd be over as quickly as possible. Some of Betty Connolly's relatives at the party said that they'd look after things until the doctor arrived. Ben and I left the house and drove back to the scene of the murder. The house-to-house check of the entire area was still going on. There was no trace of the killer. 1:30 a.m. A low fog moved in over the city. Traffic began to thin out a little. The street crowds disappeared. 2 a.m. The search went on. A little before 2:30, a patrolman on foot located a taxicab driver in the neighborhood who claimed that he'd seen a man answering the killer's description just after the shooting. Ben and I went down the street to talk to the driver. He sat behind the wheel of his cab. It was especially equipped with shortwave radio to handle calls directly from the taxi company's dispatch office.
Glad to pass it on for whatever it's worth, officer. It happened just a minute or two before I picked up my last fare.
What time was that? Do you remember?
Oh, remembering, too, and I got it right here on the waybill. Yeah, here we go. 9:48 p.m. I was parked just where I am now. Same old stand. I picked up a fare, drove them to North Main and Sotelo, and I came back here. My cab broke down. Lousy distributor. I've been waiting for the repair truck ever since.
Well, just what was it that happened before you picked up that fare here? That was at 9:48, is that right?
Yeah, 9:48, yeah. Well, I was going to say, it was just a minute or two before that. I was parked right here. This guy comes running down the street through the crowd. He was really running, too.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's almost past me when he stopped all of a sudden, turned around and looked at me. I thought he wanted a cab, so I opened the door for him. He just looked at me and said, "Never mind," or something like that, and then he took off down the street. Maybe he was just a little goofed up, I don't know.
Can you remember what he looked like?
Oh, about your build, I guess. Medium. He had a hat on, dark hat, dark suit.
Did you get a look at his face?
Yeah, he's about 28 or 30, dark complexion.
Anything else you remember about it?
No, not for sure. He looked like 100 other mooches down around this neighborhood. Just listen to those calls come in, huh? New Year's Eve, and I draw a lame cab.
Well, there's nothing else that you remember about this man that you think might help us, huh?
No, you got it all, Sergeant. Just acted a little queer, that's all. Goofed up, probably.
Did you see which way he went when he took off?
Right down the street. That way.
Mm-hmm.
Lost himself in the crowd. I couldn't be bothered.
Mm-hmm. How about when he came running down the street towards you? Did you happen to notice where he was coming from?
Matter of fact, yeah, that was just after I heard those gunshots. Of course, I didn't know there were gunshots then.
Yeah?
Looked to me like he came out of that joint up there, right near where the cop was shot.
Which joint was that?
The 228, that bar up there.
Well, it wasn't much, but it was the only lead we had to go on. 7 persons in the vicinity at the time of the shooting had volunteered the information that the killer had been a recent customer at the 228 Club, the neighborhood tavern. The owner and bartender of the club, a Ralph Stevens, had been questioned twice that night by different officers, and he twice denied that there was any possibility that the killer could have been a patron at his bar. Stevens' denial didn't make any more sense than the killing itself. We made arrangements to have the cab driver we interviewed come down to the city hall to check through our mug books for the suspect. By 10 a.m. the next morning, the body of the slain homicide officer, Jack Conley, had been posted. 4 bullets were taken from his back, 2 from the base of his skull. Russ Camp ran the slugs through ballistics, where they were identified as having been fired from a .38 caliber Colt Special revolver. 11 a.m. We drove back to the 228 Club, where we talked to some of the customers who'd been there the night before. 3 of them told us that they'd seen a man answering the general description of the killer in the bar shortly before the shooting. Ben and I went back to the stockroom at the rear of the bar and talked to the owner, Ralph Stevens.
Look, how long does this thing have to go on anyway? I told you everything I knew last night. We know that, Stephen. Doesn't seem to jibe with what the rest of the witnesses saw, though.
Then maybe you better take it up with them. I don't know anything about it. I got work to do, and you're in my way there.
Excuse me.
How come you're so sure that the man we want wasn't in your place last night?
I'm not on trial here. You asked me what I know, and I told you. If you don't mind, I got work to do. You mind moving over there?
All right, we'd appreciate it if you'd cooperate.
All right, if you want to know the truth, you're not good for my business here. Cops never are. Coming around asking questions, customers don't like it. It's no good for business, no good at all.
A cop was killed last night right outside your front door. Now, half a dozen people say that the guy who did it was in here drinking.
I run this place. It's mine. I say the man wasn't in here. Still like to know how you're so sure. I'm getting a little tired of this. I don't have an office down at the city hall to lounge around in. I got work to do. How about leaving, huh?
You want to get your coat? We can talk to you downtown. Come on.
Not before I call my lawyer. Go ahead and call him. Where's your coat? Why do we have to have trouble? I haven't got any beefs with you. No trouble, Stevens. We have to get to the bottom of it, that's all. I'd like to have you cooperate. Maybe the guy was in here last night. He came in a couple of times, that's all. I didn't want it to get out. Bad for business, those things. Can't afford it. Keeps customers away.
Then the man was in here last night, is that right?
I wasn't trying to cover it for him. I hardly know him. I just didn't want it to get out. I got a right to protect my business. Who is the man? Harry Talmadge. He's a hophead. If he did it, it probably wasn't his fault.
How do you mean?
He was hyped up last night, uses heroin. He probably didn't mean to shoot.
Where do we find him?
I wouldn't know if this is right. Old address. What is it? Fairview Hotel. Try there.
11:35 a.m., New Year's Day. We got in touch with Barney Luchek and Tom Bryan from Homicide, and they drove downtown to check at the Fairview Hotel for the suspect. Ben and I finished questioning the owner of the 228 Club, and we went back to the office. 11:58 a.m. Barney Luchek and Brian got back.
Barney, what have you got?
Fairview Hotel on South Grand. Was that the one?
Yeah. Did you find it okay?
Yeah, I talked to the desk clerk.
Talmadge registered there?
Yeah, he was. Checked out 2 months ago. No leads.
You are listening to Dragnet, a series of authentic case histories documented from official files.
1 p.m. New Year's Day. After we found that the suspect, Harry Talmadge, had checked out of the Fairview Hotel months before, Ben and I went back to the office and ran his name through R&I. The information given us by Ralph Stevens, the owner of the 228 Club, was apparently correct. The record on Talmadge showed that he was a confirmed user of narcotics. He served 2 brief terms for illegal possession of narcotics and another short term in the county jail for petty theft. We got out a broadcast and an APB on Talmadge. We checked out all his known friends and relatives, the places that he frequented, hotels, boarding houses that he'd stayed at. No leads. With the help of Lieutenant Walters and narcotics detail, we finally found the trail most likely to lead us to the suspect. The peddlers who were suspected of supplying Talmadge with narcotics. They were kept under 24-hour watch. 3 days passed. No results. January 4th, 9 a.m. Ben and I went to the funeral and burial services for the murdered officer, Jack Conley. 11 a.m. We got back to the office.
Don't know why, Joe. I just don't cotton to funerals. Not a cop's funeral, anyway.
No, I don't blame you. His wife looked a lot better, didn't she?
Yeah, seemed to be bearing up good, considering.
Well, Joe?
Hi, Barney. What do you say, Barney?
Yeah, a young fella you told me about. He phoned you, Ben.
Oh, is that right? Did you give him the information?
Yeah, he wanted to know all about taking the police department examination.
Now, who's that?
One of my neighbor boys, a nice kid. Wants to get on the force.
I told him to apply at room 5, City Hall, any weekday. You can make his application then. That it?
Fine, Barney, thanks.
Well, they got the recruiting campaign going now?
Yeah, all this month. Taking applications from all over the country.
I'll get it. Homicide, Friday. Oh, yeah, Walters. Just a minute. Okay. A-L-D-S-O-N, Donaldson. Okay, fine. Thanks a lot. Lou Walters and narcotics might be something.
What's that?
Oh? Well, he got a line on one of the mules who used to push heroin to town. He's a guy by the name of Donaldson. He's been sounded out. He's ready to talk to us.
This Donaldson was close to Talmadge?
Well, supposedly, yeah.
You know where Talmadge is?
Well, let's ask him. Ben and I left the office and drove to the address on South Alameda where Donaldson, a friend of the murder suspect, was supposed to be staying. Turned out to be a cheap hotel in the Skid Row district. It was next to one of the rescue missions down there. We finally located Donaldson across the street. He was standing on the sidewalk along with 4 or 5 other men. They were listening to a small Salvation Army band playing outside one of the beer joints.
I hardly miss any of these sidewalk meetings, Sergeant. Like 'em. Band music. I even listen to the sermons. Do me a lot of good.
I understand you're not pushing junk anymore, Donaldson. Is that right?
And you want to call me Big, Sergeant? Name's really John, but everybody calls me Big.
All right.
No, I haven't been pushing junk. Not for months. All through with it.
Well, when's the last time that you saw Harry Talmadge?
A couple of weeks ago. I'm not much for Harry anymore. Like I say, I've been regular at these sidewalk meetings, hearing the sermons. Changes the way a fella does things, you know.
Yeah.
Man's got to turn good sometime during his life. Not getting any younger. 58. I figure it's time I start living by the word. Say, that's nice music, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you have any idea where we might find Talmadge now?
I might have a few ideas on it. I don't know. Say, I guess neither one of you fellas use snuff.
No.
Don't bother you, does it?
No, go right ahead.
That's all right.
I know the last boarding house Harry stayed at, if that'll help any. Place on 12th Street. I can give you the address.
Well, is he still there, do you know?
I don't think he is, no. Matter of fact, I'm sure he's not. Wish Harry'd come around and see me. Like to get him interested in these sidewalk meetings. Get him listening to the sermons. Might help him. Did an awful lot for me.
Yes, sir. Well, you say that You saw Talmadge about 2 weeks ago?
Well, not quite 2 weeks ago. It was the day after Christmas. Came down to my hotel and wanted some money. I couldn't give him any. That's when he told me he was moving, going to some rooming house up around the City Hall section up there.
Did he mention any address?
Not that I recollect, no. That sure is nice music, isn't it?
Well, how about some of his other friends, Biggs? You think they might be able to help us?
Well, Duke might help you. Harry and old Duke are still great friends. Duke sees them more than I do.
Where do we find Duke?
Well, you know the Penny Arcade down in South Main, right down from the train depot there?
Yeah.
That's where Duke works. He's a janitor there. I've been trying to get Duke to come to the sidewalk meetings, too. He sure could stand it, old Duke.
Well, thanks very much, Biggs.
Not at all, Sergeant. Always glad to help out. Now look at that now. All out of snuff. Say you couldn't see your way clear, could you?
There you go, Biggs.
That's sure Christian of you, Sergeant. I'll handle this just like a personal loan.
That's all right, Biggs. Don't say anything about us talking to you, though, huh? Not to anyone.
No, sir, I won't. You can trust me. Say, when you see Harry, give him a message, huh?
Well, what's that?
You tell him to come and see me. I want him to show up at these meetings, hear the sermons. It could change everything, Sergeant. It could give him a new life, new soul. Brand new soul for Harry. Think of that.
Yeah, he could use one. 3 p.m. Tuesday, January 4th. We drove down to the Penny Arcade on South Main. Harry Talmadge's friend, Duke, wasn't there. The manager of the place gave us his home address, and we checked it out. Duke wasn't there either. We staked out at the place for the rest of the afternoon. Duke failed to show. At 6 o'clock that night, Barney Luchek and Brian from Homicide came out and relieved us. Ben and I had dinner at Johnny Copen's, and then we went back to the office. 7:20 p.m.
Want to grab that, Joe?
Yeah, I got it. Homicide, Friday.
This is Luchek, Joe.
Oh, yeah, Barney.
Talmadge's friend just showed up here. We're talking to him now.
Did he tell you anything?
Yeah, you got a pencil. You better write this down.
All right, wait a minute. Just a second. All right, go ahead.
1727 West Hoover, apartment 3.
It was 1727 West Hoover, is that right?
Yeah.
Apartment 3? Well, what's the pitch?
Harry Talmadge. Duke says he's there now.
All right, Barney, thanks. Bye.
Luchek?
Yeah.
What's he got?
Harry Talmadge. Supposed to be at this address. Ben and I got in the car and drove out to the West Hoover Street address where we met Luchek and Brian. 1727 was a small two-story apartment house, Spanish stucco in style. Apartment 3 was at the rear of the first floor. All right, Luchek, you want to pick up Brian and you cover the back. Huh?
Right, Joe.
Come on, Ben. Let's go. Get us up the stairs, huh?
Mm-hmm. Number 3.
Okay. I'll cover you.
No sound inside. Door's open.
Well, let's have a look.
No, it's empty.
You want to try the bedroom? I'll check the kitchen.
Joe, in here.
All right, tell me. What's the gun?
Got a gun, Joe. Grab it. All right.
You're a cop. All right, come on, drop it. Drop it.
My arm. I got it, Joe.
All right, come on your feet. All right, get him in backing. All right. Come on, hold still.
38 revolver, Joe. Colt Special.
All right, how about it, Talmadge?
It's mine. What of it?
Where's your coat?
I don't know.
Why'd you kill him?
Because I wanted to, that's all. He was a cop.
Is that your only reason?
I told you he was a cop. What's the difference?
There's a big difference, mister.
Why? I killed him. It's just one cop less. What's the difference?
Ask his family. They'll tell you.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On March 26th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 86, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial. Harold Wesley Talmadge was found guilty of manslaughter by jury trial and was sentenced to the state penitentiary. He was paroled after serving 6 years in prison. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, portions transcribed from Los Angeles.
Stay tuned for Counter Spy, more good mystery on NBC.
Hi, this is Andrew from OTRWesterns.com. I wanted to invite you to come take a look at our site. We stream live OTR Westerns 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, along with putting out podcasts of old-time radio westerns. Check us out at OTRWesterns.com. You're listening to The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio with Adam Graham. Now let's get back into the show.
Welcome back. I wonder if the LAPD was running an actual recruiting drive at the time that they referenced the young man who Romero was helping to apply for the department. If so, it was a subtle but clever pug. It's definitely an interesting look at how the New Year's holiday really affects the policeman. Alright, well now we do turn to listener comments and feedback. And we have a very nice note from Stephen who says, "Hello, I just wanted to say thank you for your awesome program. I really appreciate it. I enjoy listening to your podcast every day at work. It really makes the time enjoyable. Don't stop what you're doing. These stories are awesome and need to keep being played." Thanks again, Stephen. Well, thanks so much, Stephen, for your kind words. And that will actually do it for this week. For the first time in a long time, nothing coming up on Sunday. But be sure and join us back here on Monday for Michael Shane. And then next Saturday, another episode of Dragnet. Well, I did want to explain why this particular recording is being done in 2019. And it's for our New Year's week where I am taking a break from recording. And all the other episodes being run are just previously podcast episodes. The reason we're doing this one here today with me actually recording is I downloaded the episode and I noticed that it was only 29 minutes long, and I thought that doesn't leave a whole lot of time for commentary on this series, and there wasn't any. There was like a little snippet of theme music, and that was all. So, yeah, apparently this went out without any commentary on it, and we, for whatever reason, hadn't corrected it. Well, I particularly enjoyed this episode, so I decided I wanted to go ahead and record some commentary for it. But I'm recording it before the vacation week, so I'm not defeating my purpose or, really going to workaholic extremes on this. So we're going to bring you an episode of The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. The original air date is December the 26th of 1948, and the title is The Old Acquaintance.
When it started, a girl's wedding and New Year's Eve were only 6 hours away, and I didn't think the bride-to-be would make either one of them. But that was before I ran up against the slot machine operator, the escaped convict, and above all, the old acquaintance.
From the pen of Raymond Chandler, outstanding author of crime fiction, comes his most famous character as CBS presents The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. And now, with Gerald Moore, starred as Philip Marlowe, we bring you tonight's exciting story, The Old Acquaintance.
At 6 o'clock in the last evening of the year, I was sitting with my feet up on my office desk thinking of impossible New Year's resolutions and what the girl on my butcher's 1949 calendar would or would not be wearing. But at that present point, there was a soft, almost apologetic knock on my office door. I said come in and saw a quiet man in quiet clothes who extended a quiet hand. He introduced himself as Paul Riker, a Beverly Hills insurance broker. But the tremor in his voice said very worried client, which on New Year's Eve was something I could do without.
Mr. Marlowe, you've got to find Nancy Marshall for me.
Just for a springboard, Mr. Riker, who is Nancy Marshall?
She's my fiancée. We were to be married at my place in Beverly Hills tonight.
On New Year's Eve?
Yes, you see, it was at a New Year's Eve party a year ago that we met for the first time.
Oh, when'd you last hear from her?
2 hours ago. She called and said that she was in terrible trouble, that nobody, especially the police, could help her, that the wedding was off.
I see. You're sure it's not just a matter of your being left at the altar, huh?
Another man? Oh, no, I'm certain that's not it. Now, please, Mr. Marlowe, will you help me?
Mr. Riker, to you, New Year's Eve means wedding bells, but to me, it's something else, specifically a cozy little apartment on Wilshire Boulevard where there's a very nice girl and a couple of chilled bottles of sham...
Oh, what is it, Mr. Marlowe? What's wrong?
There's somebody outside. Riker, get away from that door, quick! Whoever threw those shots through the frosted glass in my office door wasn't interested in checking up on his marksmanship, because by the time I got to my feet, he was taking the stairs to the street. When I got outside, I was just in time to see him pile into a pickup truck and roar off. And the best I could do was get a face full of exhaust fumes and the last 3 numbers on his license plate, which read 711. When I got back to Riker and the glass on my office floor, I found the potential groom whiter, shakier, and less quiet than at our first meeting.
Marlowe, did you get him? Do you know who it was?
No, I don't. Now, relax a minute, Riker, and think.
Yes.
Who could possibly object to you and Nancy getting married?
But that's just it. There's nobody I know of, Mr. Marlowe, and I'm positive that the same is true of Nancy.
All right, now tell me, where does Nancy live?
In a villa at 1428 North Havenhurst Drive, number 12. Mm-hmm. But I've already been there, and she's gone.
Were you inside?
No, the door was locked, but, Mr. Marlowe, I thought you had specific plans for this evening.
I do. But from the way things stack up right now, they've got a better chance of keeping than Nancy Marshall. Now, look, go back to your place in Beverly Hills, stay away from frosted glass windows, and wait till you hear from me. If we're real lucky, Mr. Riker, it still might turn out to be a Happy New Year. When Riker left the office, I called Lieutenant Yarborough at police headquarters. And after being told that it would take at least a half hour to get my kind of lead out of the 7-Eleven I had on the pickup truck's license, I headed for Nancy's villa on North Havenhurst, where it took me 10 minutes to outsmart the catch on the back door. Inside, except for a carelessly overturned box of old snapshots, which meant nothing to me, and a lot of half-open drawers and closets, I was no place. And in the kitchen, where there was a full cup of cold coffee next to an open newspaper, the setup was almost the same. But not quite. Because on the front page of the paper, there was a banner story complete with pictures that shouted the news of 3 men who had broken out of the state penitentiary that morning. And one of them, a man named Steve Doyle, had a face that I'd seen only minutes ago on one of the snapshots in the overturned box. I grabbed the paper and started back to check with the snapshot once again for good measure. But the second I stepped into the living room, I stopped.
Hello. I don't believe I know you.
Oh, the voice matched the lady perfectly. She was tall, beautiful brunette, about 30. Wearing a beige metallic wool jersey that covered more curves than a ride on a roller coaster. But the large monogrammed A on her purse meant that this was not the woman who had planned to marry Paul Riker.
I said I don't believe I know you.
The name is Arthur Murray. You're late for your rumble lesson.
Oh, never mind the jokes, bright boy. It's a waste of your time and mine.
All right, then we'll play it very straight. My name is Philip Marlowe. I'm a private detective, and I'm working for a very worried man. Now you, what's your connection with Nancy Marshall?
I'm just, shall we say, an old acquaintance, that's all.
Not enough. I'll prime the pump some more. I was hired to find Nancy, who seems to be in a lot of trouble. And coincidentally in trouble on the same day that Steve Doyle breaks out of stir. Now, once more, exactly where do you fit in?
I don't think I'll tell you, Mr. Marlowe. If you don't mind.
Well, pearl-handled, huh? How very chic.
But deadly. Now get in that closet there, Marlowe. Go on.
All right. But just so we don't go through this same routine when we meet again, and we will, who are you?
Oh, you don't listen very carefully, Marlowe. I've already told you that I'm an old acquaintance. It's the season for them, remember? Now get in there and shut up.
Nancy Marshall's villa was post-war construction at its worst, closets included. So I didn't stay tucked away with the mothballs any longer than it takes to say old acquaintance. The minute I'd kicked my way out, I went right for the telephone and my only 100% bona fide lead. The number's 711.
This is Lieutenant Yarborough.
Marlowe, Yarborough. Anything for me on that license number?
Oh, yeah. If you're sure it was a pickup truck, the chances are pretty good that it either belongs to a party named Maurice J. Calder at 409 South Main or one Jerome Graff, 3221 and a half Melrose Avenue.
Check.
What's up, Phil? Anything I might be interested in?
That depends. Ever hear of a guy named Steve Doyle?
One of that gang that broke out this morning?
The very same. Matter of fact, he's probably driving that pickup truck right now.
Oh.
But look, Yarborough, I think I know what I'm doing, so how about letting me run this end of it until I get stuck?
Well,
There's a girl named Nancy Marshall mixed up in this, and a delay at this time might cost her life.
All right, I'll stay clear, Phil, for a while.
Good.
But just so you don't get too careless, remember, Doyle got out of jail this morning the hard way. He killed 2 guards.
Oh, fine.
Goodbye, Marlowe.
I got the 409 South Main. I knew that my first choice had to be wrong because Maurice J. Calder turned out to be a bankrupt junkman, and his pickup truck, which was loaded with everything including the kitchen sink, had 3 flat tires and hadn't moved in a week. So if the numerals 711 were going to live up to their reputation, Jerome Graff had to be my man. And that made the time to be careful now. 3221 and a half Melrose was a tired cottage set back about 50 weed-covered feet from the sidewalk. And from the rusted sign, Jerry Graff, mechanic, dangling at a crazy angle from a weather-beaten beam over the front door. I gathered that the place doubled as both Mr. Graff's living quarters and shop. I didn't see any truck out front, so I decided to try the alley in the rear before I knocked on any door. It was then that I noticed for the first time that I was being watched by a short man with a long face who was slouched against a nearby tree like a marionette with no strings attached.
If you're lost, mister, maybe I can help you.
Maybe? I was looking for a pickup truck. Seen one around?
A pickup truck?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wonder what that could be.
Well, it's a small deal, about a half a ton, and... Oh, I get it. Okay, here. Here's 5. Now my question.
Jerry Graff owns a pickup truck, but it ain't here. It's been out since dark. But Jerry's in. He's working late tonight.
Working at what? Come on, you got your 5. Talk.
Okay. It ain't no secret. Jerry's a nursemaid for one-armed bandits.
Slot machines, huh? Is that his racket?
Yeah. He used to be a big boy with them, too. But times have changed. Now he just works on them for other guys.
What other guys?
Oh, mister, I wouldn't answer that for even another 5. I wouldn't stay in business very long if I did. But I'll tell you one thing for free in case you're going to visit Jerry.
What's that?
Watch out for him. He's a very nasty man.
Thanks, but I can take care of myself, Buster.
What do you want?
Information. Where's your pickup truck, Graff?
Somebody stole it, but he didn't leave his card. Why, what are you, a private dick?
That's right, but one that works close to the law. So why don't we call the boys in blue and tell them all about it?
The cops? No, wait a minute. I don't like the law pattern around here. Come on in, I'll tell you what you want to know.
Let's not skip any of the details, huh? Like, for example, the name Steve Doyle.
Doyle? I don't know. Well, okay, fella, you win. The story goes something like this.
What Want to try again?
Maybe a monkey wrench will convince you.
You don't throw any straighter than you talk, Webb. Come on. What do you say? Do we play some more? Come on, talk. Come on. Come on.
Wait on it. I'll talk.
All right.
I've had enough.
So far, I know a girl named Nancy Marshall's in some kind of trouble because Steve Doyle broke out of the pen this morning. Now, you fill in the blanks.
Oh, sure. Why not? Oh, Steve Doyle, he used to be crazy about Nancy, but she didn't go for him. Then about a year ago, a little more maybe, Steve got picked up for knocking over a grocery store. He figured he was caught because Nancy tipped the law to get him out of her hair.
Now he's out to get Nancy for revenge, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. And anyone who's close to her gets the same treatment.
Oh, chummy. Now tell me, was Doyle here? Is he the one who's driving your pickup truck?
Yeah, but it wasn't my idea. He shoved a gun in my face, said we were old friends, and asked for the keys.
You know where he is now?
No, but if I did, I'd keep it to myself. Doyle's full of hate, brother. You can count on that. Now, what do you say about clearing out of here?
Just as soon as I find out one more thing. Now, there's another girl mixed up in this. She's a brunette with a lot of curves and the initial A. Calls herself an old acquaintance of Nancy's. Any idea who she is?
No, not the slightest.
You're a liar, Graff, and if I had time, I'd beat the truth out of you.
No, you haven't, believe me, because if you don't hustle, mister, when you do catch up with Nancy Marshall, you're going to catch up with a corpse. Nothing more.
When I got outside, two things stood out in my mind like a pair of cleats at Carnegie Hall. First, my client's fiancée was not the most innocent dame in Greater Los Angeles. And second, I wasn't going to get any place until I could locate the old acquaintance. But then, just as I started for my car, the slouch who had sold me the dirty thumbnail sketch on Jerry Graff came running toward me.
Hey, mister. Did everything work out all right? I was called away on some other business, or I'd have been here waiting.
Waiting for what?
Well, you know, in my game, I now and again give a guy a little more dope than he bargained for, and in that case, I sometimes end up with a bonus, so to speak.
Well, right now, we're about even. But if you can tell me anything about a beautiful brunette whose first name starts with an A, I'll give you a bonus that'll keep you in beer and pretzels from now until the 4th of July.
A name that begins with an A?
Yeah.
Hey, she visited with Graff this morning, maybe?
Yeah, it's possible. Come on, think hard.
She's kind of tall, dresses like $1 million.
That's right. Now, what's her name? Here, look. $20 bill. Her name, what is it?
It's, yeah, I got it. Adrian Starr, 1312 Lookout Mountain Road.
How do you know that?
It was on the registration card in her car. I took a peek while she was... Trouble at Graff's. I'll take my 20. Goodbye.
I beat it up the walk to Graff's, and when I got inside, I found exactly what I expected. Doubled up on the floor in the middle of a lot of oily machine parts and still holding his stomach with both hands was Jerome Graff, a very dead man. I started for a telephone to call Lieutenant Yarborough, but then I noticed something small and gold lying a few feet away from the body. When I picked it up, I saw it was an ornamental buckle, the kind that a lady might wear on a coat. So I decided to skip Lieutenant Yarborough for the time being and call my client instead.
Hello?
This is Marlowe, Riker.
Oh, yes, Marlowe. What is it? What have you found out?
Quite a bit. But first, I've got to know one thing. Does Nancy Marshall have a gold belt buckle?
A gold belt buckle?
Yeah.
Why, yes, she does on her black coat. But what about it, Marlowe? What does it mean?
I'm not sure, Mr. Riker. But it may mean that Nancy Marshall just killed a man.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of the adventures of Philip Marlowe. But first, by this time, a week from tonight, Jack Benny will have made his first broadcast exclusively on the CBS network. Starting next Sunday, you'll find Jack here with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, Don Wilson, and all the others who have made the Jack Benny Show a regular Sunday evening delight for millions of Americans. Just for fun, the Jack Benny kind of fun, make a New Year's resolution to hear the Jack Benny Show every Sunday starting a week from tonight, January 2nd, over these same CBS network stations. And now, with our star, Gerald Moore, we return to the second act of Philip Marlowe and tonight's story, The Old Acquaintance.
When I told Paul Riker that the chances were good that his bride-to-be had just knocked off a slot machine operator. My client reacted like I'd kicked him in the stomach. When he caught his breath again, he started telling me I was wrong and didn't stop until I hung up on him. Next thing on the agenda was that call to Lieutenant Ibarra.
Lieutenant Ibarra speaking.
Marlowe again, Lieutenant.
Oh, did you find the owner of that pickup truck, Phil?
Yeah, I found him, Ibarra. I'm calling from his shop now. I had a talk with the guy. It was Jerry Graff.
What do you mean, was Jerry Graff?
Well, somebody came in here and shot him just after I left. He's dead. He knew Steve Doyle all right, but I'm pretty sure Doyle didn't kill him, Ibarra.
No, then who did? Any idea, Marlowe?
Well, looks very much like my client's fiancée, Nancy Marshall. I still don't know where she is or how it all fits together, but look, I got a lead on an old acquaintance of Nancy's named Adrian Starr. She lives up on Lookout Mountain Road. Now, if you don't hear from me in, say, an hour, you might check. Number 1312, that's my next stop.
Okay, just be sure it's not your last stop. Goodbye.
I drove up Laurel Canyon to Lookout Mountain. The only sign of life was a young couple parked where they could look down at the city lights, if they wanted to. I backed into a bushy driveway across from Adrian Starr's bungalow and stopped. It was small, modern, and looked deserted, except for one dim light upstairs. I was about to get out and verify that when a pair of headlights flashed down the road and a yellow convertible swept to a halt in front of the place. It was Adrian Starr who got out. She started up the walk toward her front door, stopped suddenly, and then ran back to her car and drove off again. I kept the yellow convertible in sight. When it turned on Havenhurst and stopped in front of Nancy Marshall's villa, I pulled up in time to see Adrian step inside and close the door. So I followed her.
Marlowe, what do you want?
I want to know what Jerry Graff means to you, Adrian.
I don't know any Jerry Graff, so it means nothing.
Come on, stop it. You went down to his shop to see him this morning. I thought you might like to know that he's dead.
Dead?
Mm-hmm. The cops are hungry for anybody who so much as knew his name. Maybe I better come inside and talk it over, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe you better. Just a minute.
Thanks. Hey, it's dark. Why don't you turn on more lights?
Because I like it this way.
Okay. But, honey, if you've still got that pearl-handled popcorn of yours, let's leave it out of the conversation. And let's make it straight. Why'd you drop in on Graff this morning?
Because I knew that sooner or later Steve Doyle would head there. I had to know if Steve intended to leave town or was still determined to get his crazy revenge.
And all for Nancy Marshall, huh? You know, you're sticking your neck out quite a ways just for old time's sake, baby. Steve Doyle's a pretty tricky guy to mix with at this point.
You can say that again, Phil.
Steve! Oh, Steve.
Steve Doyle.
That's right. Who are you, mister?
Marlowe, private detective.
Sit down over there, private detective. Keep your hands out of your pockets. I don't like you because you're half cop, but play it smart and you won't get hurt. Well, Adrian, like old home week, huh?
Oh, it's been a long time, Steve.
Yeah, it sure has. Where is she, Adrian? Where's Nancy?
I don't know, Steve.
You're lying to me. This is her place. You got in with a key. You've been down to see Graff. You know where she is, all right. So tell me and tell me
Oh,
fast.
Steve, listen, forget it. Forget about Nancy. This revenge will only get you in the gas chamber. Please, let's get away. We can still make it across the border. Please take me with you. I love you, Steve, just like I always have, even when you threw me over for Nancy.
Shut up. Just tell me where Nancy is. Come on, Adrian.
I don't know, Steve.
Stop it, Doyle.
Where is she?
Steve, you're hurting me.
Doyle.
Don't move, Marlowe. All right, fella, I told you to behave. I've been through a lot, and I'm tired, and I'm running out of time. You're getting in my hair, and that's bad. Oh!
Oh, no, Steve, don't!
I won't shoot him. I can't afford the noise. I can give him something just as good. Oh! Now, Adrian, try again. Where's Nancy?
I don't know, Steve.
Come on, where is she?
I don't know.
Where's Nancy?
I don't know.
Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?
I couldn't remember where I was or how long I'd been lying there, but gradually I got the crazy idea that I was being robbed by a very unhappy crook because I was sure that somebody was crying and going through my pockets at the same time. Oh, I tried to open my eyes, but all I could see was a little gold buckle danced back and forth in front of me. When it finally disappeared altogether, I rolled over and hauled myself up onto my knees. And then it all came rushing back to me. I'd been in Nancy Marshall's villa with Steve Doyle and Adrian Starr. Only they were gone now, and I was alone. I heard a car start outside, so I got on my feet and made it along the wall to the door. It was Adrian, and she was behind the wheel of my coupe.
Stay away from me, Marlowe.
Where's Doyle?
He took my car. He's going off to Nancy. I've got to stop him, Marlowe, so get out of the way.
Somehow I managed to jump back just in time to keep from getting a press job with the tread of my own fist tires. And it took 10 minutes of steady concentration to get it through my throbbing head that Adrian had actually stolen my car and was gone. Oh, the cold air must have helped me because one thought led to another, and I finally began to separate the facts from the fancies. I hadn't dreamed all I thought I had. And when I realized that, the whole idea hit me, and hit me hard. I knew that I'd better get out to Lookout Mountain in a hurry. I made it to Sunset, hailed a cab, and collapsed in it.
Where to, mister?
Lookout Mountain Road. Make it fast.
Oh, it's rugged in this crap. New Year's Eve, you know.
Here's $10. Does that help? It's important.
Oh, it helps plenty. I know a great shortcut, a new road that's not yet finished. But how are you on bumps?
Few more won't matter, pal. Let's go. When it was over, I felt like I'd crossed the country on a pogo stick. But the cab driver was a genius, and with a shortcut, we made the distance to Lookout Mountain in less than 10 minutes. When we got near the place, I sent the cab back down the hill out of danger. Went the rest of the way on foot. As I got within sight of Adrian's bungalow, I saw Steve Doyle getting out of the yellow convertible. We ran up to the house, tried the door. It was locked.
Nancy, where are you? I know you're in there, baby. I'm going to find you. I have to take this joint apart. We've got some old business to settle, remember?
So have we, Doyle. Drop that gun. Stand still.
Okay, sucker. Go.
You won't need that gun anymore, Doyle. Just kick it over there out of the way.
Someday I'll get you for this fella.
I doubt it, Steve. You're all finished, but you're too thick-headed to see it. Well, I guess it's time to relax and wait for Adrian. And we call the cops,
Adrian just arrived, Marlowe. Don't
What?
turn around or I'll kill you.
Adrian.
There we are, Marlowe. Toss your gun back here to me. Come on now. It's better. Oh, Steve. Steve, are you hurt bad, darling? Can you make it to the car?
I'll try, Adrian. Got me on this side. It's bad.
Oh, Steve, hurry, darling, hurry. I'll be with you in a minute.
I'll make it okay.
Well, Marlowe?
Yeah. Okay, Adrian.
Tell me one thing first, Marlowe. Did Steve get to Nancy?
No. You killed Graff in time to shut him up, too, huh? So Steve will never know the truth, will he, Adrian? Could be it was you who crossed him and sent him to prison.
You'll never find out. Not now. And you'll never realize how much I love him either. That's why I did it, Marlowe. It was the only way I could hold him for myself. And I was willing to wait. Can you understand that?
Yeah. I guess I can. Too bad a love like yours has to be wasted on a guy like Steve. You'll never get away, honey. Not with him. You'll never make it.
Maybe not. But if he goes out, at least I'll be with him, Marlowe, and that's the way I want it.
Well, if you're going to do anything, Adrian, you better get it over with fast. That siren's a friend of mine. He's coming here.
Adrian! Coming, Steve. You're a good guy, Marlowe, and a smart one. Just don't follow us, that's all. So long, Marlowe. Happy New Year.
Marlowe, lad, come on, just pull out of here. Who was in it?
Steve Doyle and Adrian Starr, Yarborough.
That road makes a horseshoe turn. That'll bring them out down below us there at that junction. I've got one of those streets blocked, but the other one's wide open.
Look, Yarborough, there they are. She's stopping at the crossroad.
Yeah, they've spotted my men down there. She's turning around. They're heading out the other way. She must be crazy, Marlowe. They'll never make that curve at that speed.
They're not slowing down, Yarborough. She's heading straight for that stone wall.
Well, Speed, that's it. It's all over. They're both dead when the boys got to them. Killed instantly. By the way, how's your head feel now? Any better?
I'm okay, Barton.
Did you take care of Nancy Marshall all right?
Yeah, she locked herself upstairs. Sent her home to Paul Riker in the squad car. The driver hurries, they can still be married on New Year's Eve.
You had her pegged as Jerry Graff's killer earlier tonight, Marlowe. What made you change your mind?
Well, I found a gold buckle near Graff's body, Bar. I figured it was a fancy little belt buckle that Nancy had dropped. But I saw exactly the same buckle when I was coming to after Doyle hit me on the head. And it wasn't on a belt, it was on a shoe. Adrian's shoe. It was the mate to the one I'd found.
Once you knew Adrian Starr killed Graff, you put the rest of it together, is that it?
Uh-huh. See, for a price, Graff helped Adrian double-cross Steve. She had to kill him to keep him from talking. She hid Nancy out for the same reason. If she knew that if Steve ever got to Nancy, he'd learn the truth.
I wonder why she didn't kill Nancy, too.
I think she intended to, Ibarra.
And she did it all, really, because she loved the guy too much. Strange deal, Marlowe, right to the end. You know, she didn't have a chance to make that curve down there the way she was driving.
Not even if she wanted to make it, Ibarra.
Yeah. Well, it's 5 minutes to midnight, Phil. Happy New Year, fella. I want to see a lot of you in 1949.
Same to you, Lieutenant. Good night. After Ibarra and the others left, I stayed up on Lookout Mountain and watched the new year come to Los Angeles. A new year. Didn't seem to change things much, at least on the surface. Somewhere down the road, a gang struck up Old Lang Syne. I thought again of Adrian Starr, a girl who loved not wisely, who had called herself an old acquaintance. Yeah, I'd never forget her. As I walked back to my car, the city was ringing out the old and ringing in the new. And I wished then that someplace on everybody's list of resolutions, they'd make room for that cup of kindness they were singing about. And then a guy could say, Happy New Year, and mean it.
The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, created by Raymond Chandler, stars Gerald Moore and is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald. Script is by Mel Donnelly, Robert Mitchell, and Gene Levitt. Featured in the cast were Gloria Blondell, Edgar Barrier, David Ellis, Lou Krugman, and Stan Waxman. Lieutenant Ibarra was played by Jeff Corey. The special music was by Richard Arant. Be sure and be with us again next week when Philip Marlowe says...
They all knew he was aboard the yacht when it exploded and sank. And everybody called his death an accident. Yeah, that is everybody except the corpse himself. He said it was murder.
An hour of wonderful, delirious comedy is still to come to you tonight on CBS. You'll soon hear Hollywood's Eve Arden starring as the unusual schoolmistress, our Miss Brooks. Later, Lumet Abner will open the doors of the Jot 'em Down store in Pine Ridge, Arkansas, and let you stock up on the last from their never-failing supply of wisdom and good humor. Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is heard at 9:30, and Lumet Abner at 10 o'clock, both Eastern Standard Time, over most of these same CBS network stations. This is Roy Rowan speaking for CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, just a fantastic episode. And, listening to this, because at this point it's, where I'm recording this episode, it's been years since we finished up The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. And it just reminds me how much I really appreciate, the pacing of the show, the writing, the acting. It just moves, in such a great way, with all of these, fantastic scenes. And to be honest, this particular episode was one that I did think about, doing when we were doing the Listener's Choice Countdown, where listeners voted for their favorite episodes. But I opted not to, just because, it's a holiday episode, and, it wasn't at the holiday. But the thing with the Adventures of Philip Marlowe is that they didn't have, a situation where 80% of the episodes were, a typical formula. There were so many variations, and when they broke away from that sort of typical Marlowe, has somebody walk into the office, in Los Angeles, sort of case, and you get something, different, a New Year's theme case, or there was a case where there was a reconstituted castle in California. So there really was some creativity with a lot of the ideas. And I also do appreciate the endings, and I think the ending of this episode too really does have a nice, not overdone, but a really good thought-provoking conclusion, as people, in 1948 are looking forward towards the new year, and some pretty solid thoughts, well delivered by Moore, and well written. So I absolutely enjoyed this episode and was really glad to be able to. I do want to go ahead and thank our Patreon supporter of the day from patreon.greatdetectives.net. Thank you so much to Boz. Boz has been one of our Patreon supporters since April of 2019, currently supporting us at the Shamus level of $4 or more per month. Thanks so much for your support. And that will do it for now. Today's program is brought to you in part by the financial support of our listeners. You can support the program on a one-time basis at support.greatdetectives.net and become one of our ongoing Patreon supporters for as little as $2 per month. Just go to patreon.greatdetectives.net. But now it's time for this week's episode of Casey Crime Photographer. Now, we're skipping over the Christmas episode, and we'll come back to it when we're closer to the holidays. But now we're going to bring you today's episode of Casey Crime Photographer. Now, I'm skipping over the Christmas episode. We'll come back to that in about 3 months. But the original air date on this week's episode is January 1st, 1948, and the title is Hot New Year's Party.
The Anchor Hawking Glass Corporation brings you Crime Photographer. Happy New Year, Casey. Happy New Year, Ethelbert.
Same to you, Marvin.
Hey, you know this 1948 is going to be a great year.
Why so?
Well, don't you know? It's leap year.
And just what can leap year mean to you?
Why, I'm surprised at you, Ethelbert. Don't you know that means an extra Thursday?
So what?
So what? That extra Thursday gives me an extra chance to say that Anchor Hawking is the most famous name in glass. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tony Marvin. Every week at this time, the Anchor Hawking Glass Corporation of Lancaster, Ohio, and its more than 10,000 employees bring you another adventure of Casey, crime photographer, ace cameraman who covers the crime news of a great city. Written by Alonzo Dean Cole, our adventure for tonight, Hot New Year's Party. Nine on the morning of New Year's Day. And to some people, that hour on that day can be very bleak and dismal. Ethelbert, the head bartender of the Blue Note Cafe, is obviously not one of those unfortunates. for we find him in the morning.
Oh, what a beautiful thing. Hi, Walter.
Yeah,
Bring up 2 more bottles of aspirin. They're going to be our best sellers today.
Okay.
Oh, what a beautiful... Well, look who's here. Happy New Year, Casey. And the same to you, Miss Williams. What's the matter with you two?
Ask Walter to bring us a couple of cups of coffee, pal.
Strong and black.
Uh-oh.
And slip me an aspirin tablet.
Make that a double order.
Oh. Hey, Walter, draw 2.
Coming up. What's Herman Chittison doing here? Practicing at this hour in the morning?
He couldn't get home on account of the snow. He slept here all night.
Oh.
Here's some special headache medicine for you to stay out all night.
We haven't been stay out all night.
I know. Like good, sensible folks, you left the party early, just before daylight. And then you got all of an hour's sleep before you had to come to work on an 8 a.m. shift.
He's a wise guy, Annie.
Yeah.
You should have been like me. I wasn't on duty last night, but did I spend my leisure time in idle revelry? I did not. At 12 o'clock, my sister Edna and me wished one another a happy new year over a glass of good, healthful milk. Then I retired and enjoyed a fine, refreshing sleep. So, on this beautiful morning, you find me full of vim, vigor, and vitamins. Have another aspirin on the house.
Shall I kill this guy quickly, Annie? Listen, vim, vigor, and vitamins. The reason Miss Williams and I feel beat up is that ever since a few minutes after we reported for work this morning, we've been inhaling smoke.
Smoke?
There was another warehouse fire this morning near Chatham Circle.
That's the only New Year's party we've attended, and it was a red-hot one, too.
Bad fire, huh?
Yeah, plenty bad.
Oh, here's Walter with our coffee.
Oh, thanks, Walter. Happy New Year. Boys, and welcome, too.
Thanks, Walter.
Okay.
Your papers kind of hinted that them warehouse fires lately have been arson jobs, Miss Williams.
Oh, we're morally certain of it, Ethelbert. And that Jake Schultz is the man behind them.
He and his mob make a deal with the owners of them places to split the fire insurance, huh?
That's right. That's the racket.
Skinny Jake Schultz is a pretty smart cookie, I hear. Neither the cops or the fire inspectors has ever got anything on him.
Yeah, well, if he's behind the torch job we just covered, he isn't so smart. And this one let somebody in for a hot seat rap.
What do you mean?
Well, the fire was set at night, and there was a human being in the building, an old watchman. That means arson in the first degree. The watchman got out all right, but a fireman was killed by falling timbers. And when death is caused through commission of first-degree arson, it becomes first-degree murder.
And a reliable witness says that he saw 3 men run out of the warehouse a few minutes before the fire was discovered. He's given the police a first-class description of them.
Was one of them Schultz?
No, of course not. Dick doesn't do any firebug stuff himself. If one of those 3 guys is caught and sings, it's going to be too bad for his boss man. Annie, how about some more coffee?
No, we don't have time, Casey.
That's
We've
right.
got to get out to Barstow College.
Well, there's no hurry about that.
Yes, there is. City desk wants the dope on Professor Wendell right away.
Well, who's Professor Wendell and what's he doing?
Oh, he's a teacher at Barstow College. He went for a walk last night, and he hasn't come back.
Now, the professor who shares an apartment with Wendell's just reported his disappearance to the Missing Persons Bureau.
Well, he thinks the guy has met with foul play?
That's right. Well, if we must, we must, Annie. Come on, let's get started at Professor Gerber's place.
But this Professor Gerber's the one who reported the mysterious vanishing of this Professor Wendell, huh?
That's right. After we waste our time with him, Wendell will undoubtedly show up with a perfectly good reason for staying out all night.
Well, I'm perfectly willing to waste time on such cases today. I'd like to start the new year safely and sanely.
Me too, Annie, me too. To establish a precedent for 1948, no jams and no trouble, nothing but peace, sweetness, and light.
Instead of just a hope, why don't you two make that a New Year's resolution?
Well, that's a good idea, pal.
Excellent. We here highly resolve
That for the coming year,
and starting now,
no jams,
no trouble,
nothing but peace, sweetness, and light.
Professor Wendell and I have shared this apartment for over 5 years, Miss Williams, ever since he lost his wife. I know him, and I'm certain he wouldn't stay out all night without notifying me if he was able to do so.
Oh, when did you see him last, Professor Gerber?
He attended a New Year's party at the Teachers' Club, a most decorous affair, I assure you. Shortly after toasting the arrival of the New Year with a glass of sherry, he left saying he was going to take a bus to Chatham Circle.
Chatham Circle?
He liked to wander around there.
That's a tough neighborhood.
I know it, Mr. Casey, and I have repeatedly warned Professor Wendell to keep out of such neighborhoods, especially after dark. But to him, they were most interesting because of the criminal element he found there.
He was interested in the criminal element?
Very much so. Frankly, instead of the brilliant authority on ancient civilizations which Professor Wendell has been for many years, I am certain that he would rather have been a private detective.
An amateur Sherlock Holmes.
He more particularly admired a fictional character called Dr. Thorndyke.
Casey, if he was snooping around Chatham Circle early this morning, he may have seen something he wasn't supposed to see.
Yeah, that warehouse fire was started early this morning, Annie.
A warehouse fire?
Look, will you give us a description of your friend, Professor Gerber?
Clarence Wendell is a small man, about 5'3", I should say,
Yeah.
and he weighed not more than 130 pounds. He had light blue eyes, thin gray hair, and wears gold-rimmed spectacles. Last night he wore a dark blue overcoat, black felt hat.
Casey.
Professor, did you give that description to the cops when you reported him missing?
Oh, of course. I gave them a photograph of Clarence.
And it didn't mean anything to them?
Mean anything?
Well, it exactly fits a witness description of one of 3 men who ran out of the Chatham Circle warehouse early this morning, just before it caught on fire.
I don't understand.
Well, the Missing Persons Bureau men who talked to Professor Gerber wouldn't necessarily know about that arson business, Annie.
Oh, no, that's right. It's being handled by the homicide squad.
Will you please explain?
Now, there's more important things to do first, Professor, if you don't mind. Where's your phone? I want to call Captain Logan of Homicide and get him to check with missing persons right away.
That's all you're going to do, Casey. Just phone. Remember our New Year's resolution.
Casey, I got hold of that warehouse witness right after you phoned me. When he looked at the photograph missing persons had of Professor Wendell, he identified it immediately.
Wendell was the little guy you saw coming out of the warehouse, Logan, right?
Yeah, between the 2 other men. He hasn't been able to identify the others from pictures in our criminal file.
Wait a minute, the witness saw Wendell between the other guys?
Yeah. Now he recalls that both had a grip on the little man's arms.
Well, when Professor Wendell was playing detective last night, he accidentally stumbled onto the arsonists while they were setting the fire, and they kidnapped him to keep him quiet.
That's the way it looks, Miss Williams. Which doesn't help us find Wendell or the firebug.
Well, like the fire inspectors, you think that Jake Schultz mob is behind it?
Sure, but suspicion and proof are very different things. We haven't a single lead to work on.
Professor Wendell's a definite lead.
He's a definite complication.
Huh?
If 2 of Schultz's torches put the snatch on him this morning because he caught him setting a fire, they probably bumped him off by now.
Oh. Logan, I don't think Professor Wendell has been bumped off.
Why?
Casey, the gang won't dare let him live if he saw what we think he did.
Oh, they'll give him the works eventually, Annie. But Jake Schultz is going to do a whole lot of thinking before he okays a murder that would hit the front pages and stay there. Logan, Jake's in the fire business, but he does his best to avoid strong heat.
Yeah. I'll have Skinny Jake and his mob brought in. We'll force information out of them.
Ah, you won't force anything out of Jake or his mob. That's been tried before.
Do you know of anything else we can try?
I can try something.
You?
Yeah.
What?
I'll have to keep to myself. There can't be any cops in the picture, Logan.
Meaning you know some crook who might be persuaded to spill?
Meaning you ask no questions and I answer none, now or later.
Okay. Help me find Professor Wendell alive, and you can write your own ticket.
Attaboy, Logan. Thank you. I'll get started right away. Now stick around your office here, and I'll phone you after I make my contact.
I'll be near the phone.
So long.
Oh, I'm going with you. See you later, Captain.
Okay, Miss Williams. And carry your luckiest horseshoe, Casey.
Yeah, I guess I'll need it, pal.
Oh, what are you going to do, Casey?
Annie, I'm going to leave you as soon as we reach the street door.
Not unless you tell me what this is all about.
Look, kid, I can't tell anybody.
Well, then I'll trail you.
Well, if you do, you may wreck the one chance of finding Professor Wendell alive.
Okay. Well, just tell me one thing, off the record. Where are you going?
Completely off the record, Annie. Nick Morrow's Tavern.
Oh, the Schultz mob hangs out at Nick Morrow's. Jake Schultz owns the place.
Yeah?
Casey, you'll be sticking your neck out down there. Quite a few of the mob know you. Schultz knows you.
I'll be okay, Annie.
Well, maybe. Resolutions are so easily broken, Casey, we should only have hoped for a safe and sane 1948.
Today
a lot of you probably met jadeite dinnerware for the first time, because jadeite is the perfect solution to the problem raised by an unusually large number of guests. Jadeite cups and saucers, jadeite dessert plates and salad plates, jadeite dinner plates, soup plates, vegetable bowls, and platters are as lovely as Chinese porcelain. They're as heat-proof as the Fire King oven glass you use for baking. Yet they're so inexpensive that you can buy all the extra pieces you need for entertaining without making a dent in your budget. For example, jadeite cups and saucers cost only 15 cents for the 2 pieces, and you can buy a complete 35-piece dinner service for $6 for less than $5. Now, you'll find jadeite dinnerware at chain stores, hardware stores, department stores, and all other stores selling chinaware and glass. Ask for jadeite by name. Now it's spelled Jadeite. Jadeite, newest triumph of anchor hocking. The most famous name in glass.
No, Red Monahan ain't in the back room, Casey. Ain't been in the joint at all today.
Well, I'll stick around, Nick. You'll probably be in later. Give me a beer, will you?
Okay.
Bar do a big New Year's business last night, Nick?
I can't complain. You still running with the cops, Casey?
Nick, I don't know what you mean. I'm a newspaper guy.
Sure, I know. Here's your beer.
Thanks, Nick.
What do you want to see Red Monahan about?
If it's any of your business, Nick, I want to thank him for the Christmas card he sent me.
You've been waiting here over an hour for me, Casey?
That's okay, Red. That's okay.
Oh, it ain't okay. You're one guy I wouldn't keep waiting for no reason.
Well, look, let's sit down here. Over the corner table there, we can talk privately.
Yeah, okay. Hey, Nick, we're going to sit down. Bring me and my pal Casey a drink.
Okay, Red.
Come on, Casey. It's good to see you. Here, take the load off your face. Now, what's on your mind?
I'm going to ask a favor of you, Red.
Favor?
Yeah.
I owe you a debt, fella. One I can't ever pay. My only kid would be dead if it wasn't for you. I'll never forget how you pulled her out of the river when she was drowning.
Here's your drinks.
Oh, thanks, Nick.
That's all, Nick, thanks.
Tell me, what can I do for you, Casey?
And I'll give it to you quick and straight, Red. I want Professor Wells.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. I know how close you are to Schultz. Nick, I give him a word. That the cops don't know and won't know that I'm talking to you. All I want is that little professor, and I want him alive.
I ain't got the slightest idea what you're driving at, pal. I swear I ain't.
Say you owe me a debt, Red. Under ordinary circumstances, that's a debt that only a heel would try to collect. But under these circumstances, I ask Wendell's life in exchange for your kid.
I can't give it to you.
Because he's been killed?
No, he ain't been killed. I tell you, I don't know anything about him.
You can't lie to me, Red. Look, you're a crook, but you're not a murderer. If you don't tell me where to find Professor Wendell, you'll be committing murder right now, just as surely as though you held a gun to the guy's head.
I ain't even seen the guy, Casey. I won't see him.
You know what I mean. Keep your nose clean, fella.
I ain't no squeal. I don't rat.
You're ratting on a debt. You owe me a life.
Okay, Casey, you win. I'm coming clean with you. But I had no part in anything that happened this morning.
Where is the professor?
Being kept in an old house out in Bristol Road. While Schultz makes up his mind when and how to bump him over.
Where on Bristol Road?
East of Old Turnpike. Third farmhouse on the right-hand side.
Third farmhouse on the right, yeah.
Yeah, now get out of here, Casey. It's curtain for me if the mob finds out that I told
Nobody will ever find it out from me, Red. Thanks a million and so on. What's the matter?
Came out of the back room with 2 guys in the mob.
Hello, Red.
Hi, Jake. Hi, Maury. How's Vic, Sam?
Yeah, hi. Casey. I haven't seen you for a long time.
Well, I haven't been around your way, Schultz.
Nick phoned me a while ago that you were waiting here for our pal Red. Knowing how he feels about you on account of his kid, I decided to come over.
In the back way?
Uh-huh. I've been sitting in the back room, listening through the wall.
Listening? You heard?
Yeah, plenty. Walk into that back room, both of you. Your hands in sight. Get going.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, we've got a car in the alley, and you two dopes are getting into it.
What are you going to do to it, Jake?
Yes, can't you, Red?
Yeah. And I ain't going to take it. That goes for me, too, Red. You can clean these bugs up.
Don't shoot, guys. It might bring the cops.
Hey, this Casey's getting my gap, though.
No, he isn't.
You got him with your blackjack.
Yeah, Casey's on the picture now, Red.
I got right under control, Jake. What's happened anyway?
I'm doing just that.
Now, they're both out cold.
Yeah, but not cold enough. You and Murray, put him in the car, Sam, and we'll all go for a ride. That's a good spot, Sam. Stop the car.
Okay, boss.
Well, Red, this is the end of the ride for you and Casey.
Hey, they can't hear you, Jake.
Huh?
When you socked them back in Nick's joint, you done an A1 job.
Still out, eh?
And how?
All right, pull them out of the car and roll them into the ditch here.
Yeah. Give me a hand, Sam.
Hey, Maury. Come on.
All right. What? Got him? Yeah, got him in. Pull him back. Yeah. All right.
All right, now get back in the driver's seat, Sam. You, Murray, give me each a slug through the head.
Me?
Yes, you heard me.
Hey, you're afraid of killing, ain't you, Jake?
Oh, I'm not afraid of it. I've just been smart enough to keep myself and you guys clear of it. Now we've got no choice.
But you want someone else to do it.
Well, do it if you haven't got the guts. Get back in the car.
Yeah, that suits me fine. Hey, where you getting into?
I'll shoot from here. Sam, ready to step on the gas when I do. This is the private road.
I'll be ready. I got the bus in gear and my foot on the clutch.
Let them guys in the ditch have it, Jake.
All right, I'm letting them have it.
Hey, a car's coming, boss. From behind us.
I see it. Get away, Sam.
I'm getting... Hey, you only shot one guy, Jake.
I can't do any more shooting now. Get away from that car behind us, Sam. Get away!
Well, you certainly had that lucky horseshoe with you, Casey. We found Red Monahan lying beside you in the ditch with a bullet through his chest. You only had an egg-sized lump on the back of your head.
Oh, Casey didn't get off so easy, Captain Logan. He was unconscious for almost 2 hours after he was brought to this hospital.
Well, the doc says he's all right now, Miss Williams.
Yeah, it's all right.
I've been so worried.
They killed poor Red.
Oh, he's going to pull through. Doc didn't get him in a vital spot.
Oh, I'm glad of that. I'm glad. No, Red's more than a half-right guy, much more. But you want to know what happened?
Oh, take it easy, pal. You were delirious for a while after they brought you here, and you did a lot of talking.
He kept saying that Red Monahan had told you that Professor Wendell came to a prisoner in house on this road.
The old turnpike, third farmhouse on the right.
I said all that when I was out.
Over and over.
Well, then you went to Bristol Road and found the professor.
And my guys went there, pal, but too late.
Hilton and the men with him evidently knew they hadn't made it.
They lost no time in taking Professor Wendell away. We found the house empty. Haven't any idea where they've taken him.
Well, you found a possible lead in that Bristol Road farmhouse, Captain. Go ahead, showcase.
Lead?
That thing's no lead, Miss Williams. It merely proves that Professor Wendell was in the house.
What'd you find, Luke?
He found a belt.
A belt?
With Professor Wendell's initials on the buckle.
Now, take a look, pal. Miss Williams insists that these cuts in the edges of the belt mean something.
Well, they're fresh cuts, Casey. See?
When we found the belt in a room where Wendell was probably held prisoner, we figured that those cuts might be some sort of a tip-off about where he'd been taken from there. And it hasn't worked out that way.
Funny cuts, aren't they? Some straight, some slanting, and irregularly spaced.
Wendell knew that an ordinary written message wouldn't help it. The men guarding him would have found it and destroyed it. I'm sure these cuts are a message in code.
Our cipher expert at headquarters didn't recognize it as any code.
Well, your chief cipher experts were taking New Year's Day off, Captain. The men on duty are apprentices.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything to you, Casey?
No, not a thing.
It makes it unanimous. They're Greek as far as all of us are concerned.
Greek? Annie, wait a minute. Professor Goebel told us that that Wendell was an authority on ancient civilizations. Have you shown this belt to Gerber, or whatever his name is, Logan?
No, but I phoned him.
All right, we're going to show it to him right now.
Casey, you can't get out of bed.
I'm out. Beat it, Annie. Come on, let me get dressed. I want to hear what Professor Gerber says when he sees this cut-up belt.
All right, I'm going.
You're right, Mr. Casey. The belt conveys a message.
It does, Professor Gerber?
Yes, in the oldest secret codes that history records. The ancient Spartans used it to convey secret military information. It is called citadel. Professor Wendell hoped you'd bring this to me, Captain Logan.
He did, huh?
He must have. He knew I'd be able to read a citadel.
Oh, why are you wrapping that belt around your arm?
So that I may be able to decipher its markings, Miss Williams. You see, to write a citadel message, the ancients wrapped a strip of papyrus, long and narrow, like this belt, around a staff of predetermined circumference. Spirally, with the edge of each spiral joining that of another. Then on the joining edges, they wrote the secret information they wished to impart. When the strip was unwound from the staff, nothing but apparently idle markings were visible on its edges. Now, the belt is completely wound about my arm. See? Its message displayed?
No, not to me. All I see is that the edges of the cuts meet.
But the cuts form letters, Captain.
Greek letters.
It's Greek, Logan. Ann knows she's been to college.
What do they say?
In rough translation, they are taking me to Diana's house.
Diana's house?
Diana was the Roman name for the Greek goddess Artemis.
Say, I'm not a shark on the classics, but I get it.
So do I, Logan.
Well, I don't.
Neither do I.
Professor Gerber, Annie, the name of Skinny Jake Schultz's best gal friend is Diana. And to get away from the classics entirely, it's Diana McGillicuddy.
I never thought Schultz would take Wendell to such an obvious hideout, Casey.
Neither did I, Logan, which means Schultz has been smarter than we are. Well, all right, let's go.
All set, Captain Logan. We have the joint surrounded.
Men are ready to break in from all sides, Sergeant?
As soon as they hear your whistle, sir.
I'll hear that as soon as I get to the front door. Now, you stay there, Casey.
Oh, no. I got a little personal matter to settle with Skinny Jake Schultz. I got a hunch he's in Diana's house.
You should still be in the hospital, you Sam.
All right, but I'm not. Okay, blow your whistle, pal.
I haven't got time to argue with you.
It's the dead, guys. They're cops. They're coming in from all sides.
Pick 'em up. That means you, Schultz.
Oh, no, you're not going to take me.
You're wrong, Jake.
Oh, Casey.
I owed him that KO, Logan. And I owe these other two mugs something, too.
No.
We've given up.
Lay off, Casey.
Let me go, Logan. Let me go.
Cut it. This is a police job. You can take the pictures, but you can't make them.
Well, all right, Logan. But I want good shots. With Professor Wendell in them.
Where is Wendell, you bug?
He ain't been hurt. He's down in the cellar.
Yeah.
Sergeant, bring him up.
I'll get my camera set.
You can't take pictures of the professor for the newspapers. Hey, not for decent newspapers.
Why not, you mugs?
Oh, on account of... Because, some way, the professor lost the belt that kept his pants up. Yeah, and then some way, he lost his pants.
We'll join the crowd at the Blue Note in just a moment. You know, tonight we're nearing the end of the holiday season, and to those of you who are exhausted, here's a suggestion. A good hot cup of coffee, which you can prepare in an instant, without fuss, without work, and without waiting even a minute. Now, I'm talking about soluble coffee, the amazing scientific discovery which makes really delicious coffee available at a moment's notice. Now, all you need is a cup, a spoon, and a glass jar. The sanitary, convenient Anchor glass jar in which most of the better packers of soluble coffee bring you their products. The Anchor glass jar opens quickly and simply. There's no trouble in measuring, no waste from spilling, and even more important, glass jars protect the flavor and freshness of soluble coffee against moisture long after they're open. You'll be delighted by the delicious soluble coffees now on the market, particularly those that come to you in convenient Anchor glass containers sealed with Anchor caps. Both products of Anchor Hocking. The most famous name in glass.
Them pictures you took of Professor Wendell after he was rescued was very different, Casey. It's the first time I ever saw pictures of a college professor wrapped in a blanket. He looked just like an Indian.
Professor Wendell didn't like to have him taken that way, Ethelbert, even though Casey was responsible for his rescue. He was kind of burned up.
Yeah. He wasn't as burned up as Jake Schultz and his hired firebugs are going to be.
No, they're facing murder and kidnapping charges. And with plenty of evidence to back them up.
As the result of Casey busting some nice New Year's resolutions, Miss Williams.
Yeah. The safe and sane 1948.
You started swell. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Let's enlarge the idea. And no kidding.
You got something there, Ethelbert. All right, all together. Happy New Year to everyone.
To everyone. Excuse me.
Crime Photographer, starring Stotts Cotsworth as Casey, is brought to you each Thursday by the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation, makers of Fire King Oven Glass, Anchor Glass Containers, Anchor Caps and Closures, all products of Anchor Hocking, the most famous name in glass.
Welcome back. The math of Tony Marvin was a bit off. Because the episode was airing on a Thursday, there would be 53 Thursdays in the year, regardless of whether it was a leap year or not. As Dr. Joe Webb pointed out at BlueNoteBulletin.blogspot.com, he was also wrong because Anchor Hocking would end its sponsorship of Casey Crime Photographer in March, and that would lead to a lot of different personnel changes on the show. Dr. Webb also notes that this was a script reuse of a program from May 29th of 1945, Degree of Arson, so a lot of the New Year's trappings were added into this script. It's got a definite enough amount of New Year's related items that you'll hear it replayed on our one of our New Year's replay specials, though obviously not this year and probably not next year either. One of these days. All right, well, listener comments and feedback now, and have a comment from Joey. Joey writes in regarding the ending of the episode, The New Will. This episode does make you wonder just how a horrible war can cause a person to do dark things, including murder. Well, it definitely does. And, sometimes it can be a bit simple in some of the media of the era. But there's no question that being involved in war can be very traumatic for everyone. And people deal with it in different ways. And some can go to very dark places. I think what's important to acknowledge, of course, for many in the World War II generation, they laid aside a lot of their feelings and tried to put away the memories of that time. So many wouldn't even talk about their wartime experiences. There tends to be, I think, for more modern conflicts, a willingness to acknowledge and try and deal with the issues, although there are still stigmas attached. But thanks so much for the comment, Joey. And now we have a voicemail message. This one comes from M, who listens to the program over on YouTube. And she had a question and a couple comments.
So I just love your radio show. I wanted to know how to support the detective show. Frequently I look under there and I see if you're listed with Buy Me a Coffee or how to support the show. So I asked that in the comment section last night. Anyway, keep it up. I love your work. I honor your work. It's a lot of work. You've been doing it forever, and I know you're one of the pioneers. I just want to say thank you. I have cataracts. I can't read. I get a hoot out of Johnny Dollar. My total favorite is Richard Diamond, because I love it when Dick Powell sings at the end. I love when he sings at the end. Okay, I just wanted to say a pat on the back.
Well, thank you so much for the message. In answer to the question, you can support the program via PayPal at support.greatdetectives.net, and we also do the Zelle app to box 13 at greatdetectives.net, and mail to Adam Graham, P.O. Box 15913, Boise, Idaho 83715. And there are certainly other options out there. There are so many, it's hard to keep track of. You know, there's Cash App and Venmo, and you mentioned Buy Me a Coffee. That's a lot of places to keep track of. So I've kind of kept it simple. With those three options, of course, we have Patreon as well, patreon.greatdetectives.net. And I think that I'm just at a point where I try to keep the setup as simple as possible. And if either of the electronic options don't work for anyone, I do encourage them just to use the P.O. Box. And thank you so much for your kind comments. And I guess, at this point, I am one of the senior old-time radio podcasters out there. There were a few that I know of that were before me. Dennis Humphrey and Bob Camardella. Jim Widner had the Radio Detective Story Hour, and he hasn't put out no episode in about 4 years. Essentially, he worked through episodes of each major detective series, and then went through interesting detective-related episodes of Escape and Suspense. And at some point, he'd pretty much done everything that he wanted to do and moved on to other things, but his feed is still a great resource for all the years it was running. And then Jerry Hendiges, same time, same station. That's one still running, but it's not a podcast. It's streaming over a few different online, and I think some terrestrial podcast as well, and over at his own website. So it's really been a privilege to be able to continue to do this just as long as we have been. So thanks so much for your kind comment. Well, now it's time to thank our Patreon supporter of the day. Thank you to Randy, Patreon supporter since June of 2020, currently supporting us at the Seamus level of $4 or more per month. Again, thanks so much for your support. Well, that will do it for today. If you are listening to this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and mark the notification bell. Of course, next Monday we'll be back with another episode of Casey Crime Photographer. Tomorrow, though, listen for a previously uncirculated episode of Jeff Regan, where...
You were here when it happened?
Do I have to go through all that again?
If I take you to Wilshire and Fairfax, you do.
All right. Mind giving me a name?
Regan.
All right, Regan. I'm Francie Colby. I'm not used to the name yet.
Best wishes.
For what?
Isn't that what they say when you get married?
Yeah. You ever met him?
Yeah, in your garden. Doesn't talk much.
Heard's that way. What do you want to know, Regan?
When it happened, how they did it.
Oh, boy. I'll tell you my story, and you pick out what you can use.
Let's hear it.
It was 2 hours after the ceremony. Everybody was out in the garden for the reception. I don't know where they came from, but there were 3 of them.
What'd they look like?
They were tall, wore masks. One handled a gun and lined up everybody, and the other 2 had pillowcases. They went down the line and took everything that glittered.
Strictly jewelry. Anything big?
20,000 from the rest of them. I was queen.
Hmm?
I was wearing a thing called the Colby Group, necklace and bracelet belonging to Bert's mother.
What price?
100,000.
Ooh.
And I hope you'll join us then. In the meantime, do send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. And check out our Instagram, instagram.com/greatdetectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.